you! Don't watch that! Watch this!
Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you. And your friends, they all come crawling, slap you on the back and say, well, I don't know why I came here tonight. Got the feeling that something ain't right. I'm so scared in case I fall off my chair, and I'm wondering how I get down the stairs. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you. Stuck in the middle with you. Yes, I'm stuck in the middle with you. Oh, I'm stuck in the middle with you.
Hello, 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 my darlings. Hello. How are you this evening, sweethearts? How are you, snookums? Are you guys good? Are you guys loving the post-Brexit Britain that we have? Are you loving it? Because it's like McDonald's. It seems like a good idea, but once it happens, it's kind of hollow and calorie rich, but really doesn't give you any energy. It's not all it was cracked up to be. The world has not ended, people. We are Brexited. We have ended. We are no longer part of Britain. The dog has finally caught the fire engine. Now what do we do? is the thought that has been on my mind in the last few days. So here we are, kids. Here we are, post-Brexit Britain. We have now exited of the Brexited. The sky hasn't fallen. I don't see zombies running the streets. Shit looks kind of normal. People are not running around in their underwear. Debauchery has not taken over our land. Demons are not running amok. I don't see the rivers of blood and the plagues of locusts, which was expected. Any time now. It's a whole Monday. I've waited a couple of days, waiting for those plagues and pestilence and the four horsemen of the apocalypse to come upon us, and yet nothing has happened. It seems things might just be okay. Hello, everyone in the chat. I'd just like to say big up to I'm Better Than You, Mr. D. I don't know if you want me to say your first name, D? Maybe not. I'll just go with I am better than you. Mark Coyle, the man who bought me a beer last Friday, and I thank you for that beer, for it was most enjoyed. It went down so well that and I took a Corona, so I have a Corona in me. And hello, Victoria, Street Soldier. Big up, the kindest, loving man ever. You have no idea how much I love this man. Okay. I can only barely express my love I have for this man in a totally heterosexual way. I have never loved a man so much than Street Soldier. So big up Street, big up Mark. You can have another one on your next mission. Thank you. I still have some left, I think. Well, actually, I bought a beer for based Welshman as well, so it was mostly appreciated, Mark. Thank you, and thank you Fee Green as well, by the way. When he gets here, I will thank him too. Miss Milk Philosopher, hello Milk. Boaty McBoatface, what's up? And yes, and Victoria, yep, I already said Victoria. Jessup, everybody is good. Well, are we sitting comfortably, kiddies? Are we all sitting all snug as a bug in a rug? Because we are about to begin this shit show. To tell you the truth, I had some thoughts. I had some thoughts in my head, and those thoughts have now expressed themselves in the form of words, I think, and that's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to vomit my thoughts all over you. Because they've just been in my head, and in the meanwhile, while I was thoughting about these things, another cunt killed or tried to kill a couple of people in Streatham. Another member of the almighty religion of peace. The religion of peace showed its peacefulness to us yet again on the streets of Streatham, and yet no asshole in the mainstream media wants to touch the real reason. Why do they do this? Why do they do this? This morning I listened to bullshit mainstream media because I was going on a long drive, and all I heard was people confounded to the reasons why such a man would do such a thing. Oh, he must be mad. It must be madness. It must be just sudden madness that took him. That's why he did such a thing. Hey, big up Mr. Ralph, Master Ralph. Big up to you, sir. So yes, it's confounding. It is puzzling why such an ordinary man, known to the police and also in prison as well, for his proclivities towards stabby, and yet people are confounded. People are puzzled. The mainstream media pundits are unsure and unaware of what is happening around them in this country, that such a upstanding citizen would suddenly become so stabby. Give me my hat back. I'm sorry, Ralph. I couldn't help it. It's just these days I find myself in strange places amongst strange allies that I would normally not find myself allied, or not find myself at least in unison with thinking. You see, the things that you were saying, when you were doing that walkabout, when you were walking around Whitechapel, and I know that area very well because I used to commute through there many years ago, and I have seen many ninjas walk about as if they suddenly removed that ninja veil, the lust of their beauty would take me so harshly that I would not be able to resist the fat, chubby, waddling woman with a hairy upper lip, that I could not possibly resist such beauty and magnanimous awestruck, that I would be forced to release my lust upon her in a rapey manner. Thus she has to wear the cloth bag and the face veil, because if she ever removed that face veil and exposed that hairy upper lip of hers to me, I would find no other discourse but to ravage her there and then on the streets of Whitechapel. Oh, he wants to get on. Dude, this is my monologue moment. I do my monologue. You're fucking with my monologue now. You want me to go straight into the chat. Okay, fine. Have your moment, Ralph. I will bring you on. There you go, Mr. Ralph.
Oh man, I was just having my ice cream. I almost spat it out when I saw the. I almost spat out my ice cream when I saw the image with the clown and the stock in the middle with you. That's all I'm on for, man. I'll be heading up for a movie soon. But yeah, I saw that. And you know what, earlier we were talking about the stabbing, right? And I came up with the Kinks. You know the Kinks, because I was saying this English boy from Streatham, yeah?
Yes.
I wonder what kind of music he was listening to. Was he listening to stabbing on a sunny afternoon?
It was probably drill music. It was that drill music.
No, but then the chat had lots of other stations, like stab in the middle of you, and all sorts of. And there was
in the summertime when the weather is hot, I just go stabby in the middle of the street.
And there was the Michael Jackson version. I'm bad, I stab.
Yes. Billie Jean was not my hijabi. I just wanted to stab her.
Sorry, matey. I'm sorry. I wanted your monologue. I've only got 5 minutes.
This was fine. You added much needed levity to this shitty fucking day where I'm listening to these pundits, these pontificating pricks on radio all day long, wondering what could have brought this young man into such a rage of stabbiness in our country. How is this possible?
I had a stream earlier with lots of people watching, and I was doing things like doing some cathedral, some mainstream media word counting and stuff, and there are like lots of like, he was a lovely boy, very polite. So the word polite showed up 5 times. Yeah. Very lovely showed up 3, and you're like, wow. Yeah, he's such he's very polite when he stabs you. He apologizes.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me. Sorry, may I just?
There you go. If I just like stab you in the eye while I'm at it, I'm sorry.
Excuse me. I'm awfully sorry. I'm awfully sorry. It's like fucking. It's like Hugh Grant with a fucking machete. It's Hugh Grant from Mogadishu.
Yeah. A mental man.
Yeah. It's like. Excuse me. Pardon me. Excuse me. Stop.
Yeah.
yes, that's what happens. This is diversity is our strength. Diversity is our strength as we walk along our streets, worried about some fucking Nimrod ready to stab us in the fucking chest. He tried to kill a woman with 2 children, apparently.
But we all agree that diversity is a strength. We in the nationalist right embrace diversity, and that's why we're really worried. And would you agree with me, Banksy? Obviously, the next people to really, really watch out for are young Korean girls.
Oh, of course.
Because the blacks have been stabbing, the browns have been stabbing, the Muslims have been stabbing.
It's the Koreans.
And because inclusivity is a strength, the little Chinese girls are going, hey, we're not included in the stabbing stuff. It's our turn next, right?
These Japanese, where are the Japanese stabbies? Where are the Korean stabbies? There is not enough. You know, there is not enough diversity in this stabbing rage.
Yeah,
just like the BAFTAs, where there was not enough diversity in the BAFTAs.
Yeah.
Why isn't there enough diversity in the people stabbing people in the streets? It always seems to be brown and black.
Is that BAFTA? Is that where a lot of really, really wealthy, rich white people complain that there are no black people with them?
Yeah, because clearly
that's not true, right?
The funny thing is, though, they never seem to complain when you have the Mobos or when you have all these other like the West Indies cricket team. Not enough diverse white people. Where are the white people in the West Indies cricket team? I want to see more white in that cricket team.
Oh yeah, and also there are not a lot of gay people either.
Not enough gay people and white people in the West Indies cricket team. God damn it, I want diversity.
I want to see a lot of homosexual people in the African sports team.
Yes.
I don't really see it, mate. I mean, it's just me.
I think anal sex is the way to improve the West Indies cricket team.
Banksy, you're worrying me, man. You're using a lot of nationalist talking points here. Something's going wrong. You're in the wrong guy. You got yourself into bad company, mate.
I'm hanging around the wrong sorts. That's what my problem is.
You're the great white liberal hope.
That's what it is. I mean, I am the great white. Usually, there's something followed by Moby Dick and Ahab.
Oh man! You know what? Like Streatham is just like one of those most ordinary places, right? And the other young famous English model, right? Naomi Campbell. She's from there too, right?
She's from Streatham. Fucking hell.
Yeah.
I bet she doesn't live in Streatham anymore, though.
Hell no.
I bet she's nowhere near fucking Streatham anymore.
But you heard the other big news on the major breakthrough in genetics, right?
What happened?
Oh, you didn't? Oh my God, you haven't seen the news and stuff. You didn't know that Zubida was actually a.
The Jew, the Ashkenazi. I told you that bitch was Mossad always. I knew she was Mossad, infiltrating Speaker's Corner with her hip hop rapping and Waleed's fucking belly dancing. This is how they come to you. This is how.
Waleed. I apologize deeply, bottom of my heart to Waleed. I always said you were camel shagging, but it looks like you're Jew shagging instead, mate.
It looks like you like them shekels, Waleed.
let me go 1-800-1888 the Muslim Brotherhood, Egypt. What's Egypt style code? Country code.
I'm telling you, this is Mossad all the way. I mean, right now we have to basically have Zubida and Joseph sit down and have a little heart-to-heart, because she should be on the Israeli advocacy. She should be on the Israeli advocacy channel.
Have you noticed have you ever realized? I thought about this. Have you ever realized that you've never seen both of them at the same time in the park?
That's true. Joseph and Zubida are never in the same place at the same time.
I refer you to page 27 of the Mossad Abroad Training Manual.
It's like Clark Kent when he takes off his glasses. No one will know it's him. No one knows that Joseph and Zubida are the same person.
No, this is a hell of an alliteration and playing words, but you could almost title it "When Nosy Met Nosy." No, that's just go. I like Joseph, man.
I gotta back away. I love the Jewish people.
Yeah, me too. Hey, man, we in the nationalist movement support the right of the Israeli defense. We support the Israel.
I love Gal Gadot. I love Gal Gadot. Hey! Oy vey!
We don't want them to shut it down, man.
This show is getting out of hand.
Hey, I didn't mean to. But what's it? Is it true that Raspek's channel's gone away now again?
I don't know. Someone just wrote down your whole channel just all shut down. So maybe everybody's coming over here. Big up Raindrop, by the way. Big up Raindrop. Big up everyone else. I don't know. I mean, the thing is, he talks. I mean, that's why he removes all his videos, because they talk all this jihadi shit, and then they shut down, and then they take away their videos so that they're not held accountable. But I guess someone caught them in the middle. I mean, guys, anyone who wants to jump on, I guess.
Yeah, I'm just having my ice cream. I'm allowed an ice cream treat tonight, man. So I'm having my ice cream before bed. And I saw this fucking good-looking guy in a clown hat. I thought, what the fuck?
No, you're the jester. You're the Joker. Clown is thingy. Lister's the clown.
So I guess if I'm the Joker, that means
to my right.
So if I'm the Joker, does that make Raspek the Midnight Joker? Boom, bitching. Man, everything's be on fire in it.
Yes, but But yes, I mean, I don't know. I just had these thoughts, these ideas. What is going on in the world?
Don't act on it, man. Don't act
Don't
on it.
act on it. I have
Just don't do it.
thoughts, and especially this morning's jihadi bullshit, and all these fucking radio pundits just be baffled. They are bamboozled as what could have happened. What could have happened to take this poor diverse young lad of
But you know
the
what,
age
mate?
of 20?
It's like reverse. You know, it's like fishing. You know, it's like catch and release. It's like I almost imagine Benny Hill music in my head. It's the opposite of catch and release. You find this fucker for 18 years, you've caught him, then you put him in, and then you release him from prison, and then what you do is you chase him around after a while.
Yeah,
It's almost like going fishing. It is, isn't it? It's almost like you catch the fish. What you do is you put the fish back in the pond, and all the fishermen dive into the pond and try to chase the fish.
Chase him again.
You're like, dude, you need to rethink your strategy here, man. Like, how about you don't let them out again, right? How about that?
I know. It's the thing is, this is what pisses me off is that these guys. We know what it is. We know it is better for them. This is what the British government of today and the police of today think. It is better for some fucking jihadi asshole to go and try to kill people in the streets of London than for them to be called racist. That's what it really comes down to. This is what I wanted. This is what I was screaming
I also blame
on the
the
radio
conservatives. That's the left wing. I blame the conservatives as well because their austerity, their capitalism, when they don't even care about the nation. And they're like, they've been cutting austerity for 10 years.
Yes.
And they do, if there's one thing you don't cut it on the terrorist funding. I mean, for fuck's sake, please.
No, the thing is, this is Theresa. This lands. I'm not even joking. This should sit firmly on the steps of Theresa May. When she was Home Secretary, the police of this nation, experienced police officers, begged her not to cut the police fundings. They begged her. They said this will get bad, and she went ahead, and that bitch cut the fucking funding, and now we have our people being stabbed in the streets. Look, the thing is, Ralph. As much as whether you want to say, my people, my British people, this and that, all I'm trying to tell you, all I'm trying to convey to everyone is it doesn't matter whether you love the white British people or you love the brown. This is in your town. One day, your mother will be on that road. Your sister, your brother, your daughter will be on that pavement. And then one of these assholes will plow a fucking knife into them, and you'll be the victim of this as well. This doesn't exclude you, Raspect. This doesn't exclude you, Jedi, Callum, or any of the fucking idiots who support.
I know what you mean, but you know what the truth is, though. If we caught him alive, I'd have him up in front of a tribunal, man. Because these people are not equal opportunity stabbers. One, they never stab Muslim people, and they never seem to pick on gangs of black guys.
They only go for the white man.
Well, they may not be white, but they don't seem to be picking either Muslims. Number one, no Muslims are stabbed during the making of the jihadi attack.
Yeah, I don't know about the ones on like London Bridge with the van. I think they hit some Chinese woman. They hit French people. It wasn't just.
Yeah, I'm not sure about white, but I'm trying to say the people who don't seem to be hit are tough, hard black kids or Muslims.
Maybe it's because they're not out at those times of the day. I don't know. Maybe if they ran through Brixton at fucking midnight, they'll probably get.
You mean the sun's still up and stuff? They haven't woken up yet, right?
It's not mid-afternoon yet. They do the jihadi attacks at AM time instead of PM time.
Note yourself, man.
But what I mean is, this is Streatham. This is down the road. I know Streatham. I've driven through Streatham. I've walked through Streatham many a times. This isn't that far fucking away from us. This isn't a million miles. London Bridge. Westminster. I used to work in Victoria when that Westminster fucking attack happened. I could walk to fucking Westminster Bridge from Victoria.
Dude, I was 2 squares away from the 7-7 bus when it happened.
Fucking hell.
I was walking my pooch. And I was really angry because I thought if anything happened to Pooch, I was going to run the fucking entire counter-jihadi operation myself if they touched my dog. I'd be like, right, all of you fuckers are going if anything happens to Pooch.
This is happening on our doorsteps. This isn't some other guy, some other place. This is you. This is me. This is us right in front of fucking us. This is the problem. And yet you still get fucking lying bastards like Hijab and Adnan Rashid, who is a bald-faced liar. I'm not even joking. He looked at me in my eyes and said it wasn't me on that tape when I was trying to fucking rally support for
Hey,
Sheikh
but hey,
Faisal.
that's just a
He
Kia, man.
looked
Just a
me
Kia.
in the eye. This man does not fucking believe in his God, because he
Yeah.
looked me in the eye and he bold-faced lied. I wanted to see it for myself. I thought maybe he's, on camera, maybe it's not, maybe if someone looks him in the eye, dead in the eye, he will at least feel a little bit of shame for his God, if he actually believes his God can see and hear all things. And yet he fucking lied in my face without flinching, that lying son of a bitch. And he was in that fucking room trying to rally support for Sheikh Faisal, and yet he they lie. These fuckers are liars.
Yeah.
They are.
Well, on the other hand, he might
liars.
be saying that, whereas Muhammad Shah Hijab is probably there going, but if there's an infinite regression and there's no creator before the creator was created, therefore by infinite regression there's a induction problem in the cognitive. And you're like, yeah.
That's why my brethren has to stab you in the fucking streets of Streatham, because of infinite regression, because of Maslow's law, and because of the third law of thermodynamics. That's why he came and fucking stabby everyone in the streets, because of third law of thermodynamics. Fuck these people. Fuck these people.
Sunny afternoon.
Fucking hell, I swear to God, it pisses me off, because this is real. This is happening.
It's
people
real.
are dying. And
It's real.
So,
I also say the fact that, look, he went from 16 to 18 with no indication of early warning. He's 20, so he's born in 2000, right? So we do the math. 0 to 16, no sign of any problems.
he's a fucking Zoomer.
It's high school. Then you go 16 to 18 to whatever they call it, some extension college. Still no problem. Within 24 months, he's gone from 0 to a host of terrorism material offenses straight to stabby-wabby. So that means, on average, the kind of adoption curve is like, hey, they can go from 0 to full ballistic in a full jammer in like 24 months.
So this concept of the third and fourth generation of Muslims living in the West will be better and will be more European.
Bollocks.
This is clearly bullshit. It's
It is
like
bullshit.
you can't get any more bullshit than that. Of course they're not going to become more fucking secular.
I don't want to sound like a complete and utter cunt or anything, but given the icon and stuff, can you just remind me once more about, like, you people feel uncomfortable by deporting people because they were born here? Just remind me roll that again through my head once more. He was born here, therefore.
This is the problem, Ralph.
Yeah.
You fucking... You come along and you make points that seem fucking valid and incredibly logical, and then I find myself in a position of going, strictly
But you see,
speaking,
but you have to trust us. We have a get out cause called hashtag not all, man. Really, hashtag not all. You have to believe us. Now you think you're saying that. You're just saying that because once you let a few thousand go, I'm going to, and we're all going. Oh,
the fact
that's your
is
fear.
that when it comes down to this, you see, the problem is, Ralph, when it comes to people who have power, they say power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts, absolutely.
Yeah.
There may come a day that I may not have to worry if your side, let's say, wins. I may not have to worry about some fucking Muslim putting a sword to my neck and saying, you may see the light of, either you see the light of Allah in the reflection of my sword, or you get my sword. I may not see that, but I might get some other fucking cunt on the other side.
No, you're right, man.
You
You're
brown
right,
cunt, you're gonna die.
You're right. You're right. You won't see that. You won't see any of those problems. They'll all go away. In fact, you won't see very much from your cell in the camp.
That's what I mean. So when I'm sharing a fucking bed with 4 other people after a hard day's fucking shoveling shit,
It's a hard day's work.
digging a fucking mass grave. I don't know, dude.
Oh, that was the other song that was in the chat. Stab, me do.
Yeah, there you go. But the thing is, dude, it's the hard any. This is the dangers of extremism on all sides. The problem is the cucks in the middle are too cucked. They're not going to do anything about it. So you either have to be fucking hardliner on one side or a hardliner on the other.
But I'm on your side. Like, I have a good friend who's probably he's so close to you in your positions. He still believes, and he actually agrees with me. He says, it's been extreme fuckers on the left, progressive. He says dangerous cunts like you on the right, Ralph. And the problem is, it's been extreme liberals who have been extremely tolerant.
Yeah.
He says we need to restore liberalism by stop being so extremely tolerant,
Yes.
so I can keep the far left and the far right out of my fucking life, right?
Well, this is it. This is it. They can't. The middle is unable. It's too piss weak to actually
it's become extremely tolerant. The problem is it's also shown extremism back. He's become extremely pathologically tolerant. If the liberal were to grow some balls again, go like, look, we know these guys are the bad guys. We're not going to throw away human rights, but you fuckers, we're going to throw away your human rights.
Well,
then at least the left and the right would be like, okay, the centre is now being sensible again, right?
Well, this is
as opposed to the left running one way and the right going, because the right are, if you give us an inch, we're going to do is just what the left did, right?
Well, the thing is, I mean, what Nigel Farage was saying, comparing nationalism with alcohol, and a bit of it is good, too much of it, you get fucked up. Maybe that's true, but right now we're at a point in which so much of leftist crap and this overabundance of tolerance has driven people to the point in which now it's become your tolerance is detrimental to your own fucking country.
It's extremism, Banksy. It's extreme tolerance. That's probably it's a different. It's like extremism in the middle. It's and I know that sounds like a strange expression.
I know.
It literally is like it's let me try to soften the pill for you, sweetheart. It's pathological tolerance. If I didn't say extreme, it's pathological. It's like no, whatever happens, Moloch.
Well,
and you're like no. Some guys who are born here should never be even allowed to be born anywhere. Fuck, forget they've been born here. They should never be born. And if we can get rid of those people, the rest are all right. Yeah, because let's say hashtag. Not all are going to run around doing these things, but you can't give cover by pathological tolerance and then allow therefore the local stabby wabby chats.
Well, this is it. Like, am I supposed to just sit back and be tolerant of those assholes? Am I just supposed to be just chilled? Well, let's just be tolerant. No, fuck this tolerant bullshit.
And last time you said, hey, man, fuck it, where can I go? I run away from England, my family. Maybe I'll go to New Zealand. Need I mention New Zealand?
I know. Oh no, no fucking Prime Minister of New Zealand wore a hijab
for some reason.
Well, that's what I mean. The Prime Minister of New Zealand was wearing a fucking hijab 6 months ago. So, I don't know what it was, but after that. Church... Sorry.
What about what are the outer islands? You go really, really South Pacific.
Well, that's it. That's my only fucking hope.
Maybe that.
I have to go. I have to go find some fucking tiny little island in the middle of the Pacific, and then when I'm on there, I have to be intolerant as fuck of any cunt that fucking washes up on the shore. You immediately get a fucking pickaxe in the head. No cunt gets on that stuff.
That sounds like a nationalistic model for England. That sounds like one model we're thinking.
That's a nationalistic model for me on an island.
Anyone coming there? Yeah, no one's coming into the island.
No one's coming on.
Don't you enroll your personal?
This is an incredibly intolerant island.
5,000. The UK has what? 5,800 islands.
The UK?
Yeah.
Seriously? Where the hell do they have all these islands?
They come here, they don't even fucking know the local geography. I'm telling you, no wonder we want...
Wait, the UK, how the hell the UK has 5,000 islands?
I think so, roughly.
Around the
yeah, I mean, okay, mate, I know you put on weight, but how big were you thinking this island was going to be and stuff?
I thought there was like an... Oh, so you're talking tiny little things.
Island, or you thinking Australia?
Yeah, no, I'm thinking like, something that was substantial for people to live on. But I mean, I suppose there are. You're right. I've seen little tiny islands around, like just off the shore of like Jersey and Guernsey and all that. There's little islands around there, and Isle of Man. I think you're right actually. Yeah, and on Scotland, yeah, they do have a lot of little ass islands all over the shop. I'm gonna have to look into Scotland.
Like about 500,000.
Yeah, you're right. If you take all the little...
Look, I think it's coming to that point in our lifespan. I think you and I should go 50 on one of these islands, right?
Dude, I don't want to go live in a fucking island on Scotland. It's so fucking cold. I can't live up north. There must be...
Okay, if I give you a choice right now this morning and said an island in Scotland or Streatham, where would you pick?
Oh, for fuck's sake. Well, this is the thing. This is the thing. I think I'm seriously. I'm thinking. I'm not even joking. I got offered, but I didn't get it offered. But I got. I had a conversation of someone potentially offering me a job on the Isle of Man, and I was thinking about taking it.
Okay.
Not that many reportings of stabbing in the Isle of Man.
Work. Was it online gambling?
No, actually, it was IT. Yes, and it was something in that region. Yes, actually, it was.
I know.
You know what goes on Isle of Man. Yeah.
I do indeed,
it was and a Fentech as well. There was some of those things going on. But I mean,
one of your bitches in the chat says I'm a crap Nazi.
Interesting.
Would you like to go for? Would you like to come? I can introduce you to my collection of nickel-plated Lugers, if you like. Come round, mate.
I can see 1984's put 13 3/4.
Yeah,
I'm telling you.
We keep talking about
I'm telling you. Is it
1984?
This afternoon, when I was listening to these fucking radio pundits, I was far further along that 13 3/4 was edging far fucking closer than you know. You have no idea how close I got.
You got a couple of crossbows on you. You've got a headband wrapped around your scarf. You're like, fuck this.
I'm telling you, I got close. I got close to that 14 this morning. Because listening to these fucking nimrods discussing, what could it have been? How could this young man have just become radicalized?
Such a polite. Excuse me, do you mind telling me if I just stab you in the eye?
Yeah.
I hope you don't mind. While you're picking up your boots, like pricey meal or whatever you get.
Yeah, yeah. While you're shopping at your Pret-a-Manger, can I just put a stabby in that latte of yours? Just a small kitchen knife. But I'm telling you, dude.
So anyway, I feel bad. I feel like I've hijacked on your show and stuff.
It's all right. It's all good. To be honest with you, this was a very ad hoc.
Yeah, everyone is reacting, isn't it? As long as you have the right reaction, you should be all right, mate.
The right reaction. Yes.
Sorry.
Yes, as long as you have the right reaction, people.
Yeah. I'm gonna go bother the missus.
No worries, dude. No worries. Give my best.
Stuff, yeah. I'll see you in court tomorrow morning with the images.
Yes, as they come and handcuff both of us away. No problem, my good man.
Banksy.
Take care. Take care. Have a good one. Okay. Now it's back to me. Well, guys, anyone else wants to come on, just let me know, or just jump in the back. The link is in the description, so feel free. MC, I don't know if you were up for a chat. I mean, to be honest with you, this was a very ad hoc Monday, just bullshit. I was just pissed off. I was just pissed off at this fucking idiots on radio. I was pissed off at the people on the radio more than I was of the dipshit in fucking Streatham stabbing people. Because the dipshits like that are not going away. This will not be the last stabby jihadi on the streets of London or anywhere in England. Be assured of that. Because the problem isn't with these idiots. The problem is that we in this country and these pundits on these radio stations and the mainstream media and the politicians would rather for your children and for your parents and for your sisters and brothers to get stabbed in London than for these cunts to be called racist. That's the problem in this country. The problem isn't that there are going to be morons stabbing people in the streets. It's that our politicians and our police and our fucking legal system and our pundits and newspaper editors and TV fucking producers would rather report on your family members being stabbed in the streets of London or anywhere else in Britain than for them to be called racist. That's the choice that they would wish to make. That's what they do. That's the side they fall on. They'll report the death of your fucking loved ones, but God forbid if they're ever called a racist, because they'll just play dumb. What could have possibly encouraged this young man to do such a thing? I don't know. Let me... Hold on. I'm sorry. I can't see you because of this giant white fucking elephant in front of me. Could someone move the fucking elephant out of the way so I can see what the fuck the other guy's saying on the other side of the room? Because I don't know what could have possibly have encouraged this young man to stab people in the middle of the street. But I can't see what you're saying because there's this giant white fucking elephant right in front of me. Could someone move this fucking elephant that's written Islam on it? Because I can't possibly blame this ideology. No. I would never be considered. I would die before someone calls me an Islamophobe. God forbid if someone calls me a racist. But in the meanwhile, I'll just report on the death of your fucking family members. I'll report on... they on fucking... What was it? On talk radio. They had this fucking comedian who apparently comes into and does some... I don't know, he comes into the talk radio offices or whatever, and he's on the shows. And he happened to be across the road going to the cinema, and he witnessed this. And he actually... The guy carries a... He said he carries a blanket when he goes to the cinema because it gets too cold. This is the most limp man ever. The moistest, softest motherfucker on the planet. And he then gave his little blankie that he takes to the fucking cinema to stop the bleeding of the man on the floor. Now, fair enough. Good on him. He did he did the right thing. But this man was the softest fucker on the planet. And I'm listening thinking, holy shit. He was talking about the fact that he can't sleep now. That he has sort of fucking PTSD. I was like, well, there you go. There you go, Britain. There you go. There is your fucking reason why the jihadis are fucking taking over the country. Because your men are soft as fucking piss. I referred you to my last stream with the title, Weak as Piss Men. There was a reason why that was called the weakest piss men fucking stream. Because there is a lot of weak as piss fucking men in this country right now. And I'm getting sick to fucking death of it. I'm done. I am fucking done. Why are you London fucking yuppies so piss weak? You don't have a set between yourselves. You couldn't find a set of balls between the fucking 20 fucking these hipsters in this town at the moment. No wonder they fucking go around these Islamists and feel free to stab your fucking people. Because you lost your balls, England. You lost your fucking balls. Those people who built the British Empire would have cut this fucker's balls off by now. He wouldn't have fucking dared to walk down the streets of fucking London and stab anyone. Because a bunch of fucking EastEnders would have fucking strung him up. At least the police with the fucking guns did their thing. You gotta give them at least that much. Islam still loves me. Don't fuck it up now. That's right, Singh. That's right. I was so close. I almost fucked up my embrace of Islam. I'm still welcomed in the mosque on fucking Whitechapel. Am I still welcomed in the East End Mosque? Will I still be welcomed back into the Ummah? Or have I blown my chance now? Fucking hell. Fucking hell. It's so fucking frustrating. It's so frustrating because I don't know whether you guys, which one of you lives in London or doesn't. I fucking do. I'm worried. My brothers walk the streets of this town. My mother catches a fucking bus. My family walk around these fucking places. And these cunts are out there, and they will be anywhere at any time. So yes, I'm fucking worried. And this shit is spreading. It's spreading not just in London. It's gonna come. It will knock on your fucking door too one day. I'll promise you that. There'll be some jihadi that will cross your fucking family or your path one day too. And what the fuck are we doing about it? Bunch of fucking radio pundit dipshits, limp-wristed, limp-dicked motherfuckers talking about, oh, we don't know what could have possibly have done this, what could have been the result, what could have motivated this fucking young man to do such. It's Islam. It's fucking Islam. It's this shitty fucking ideology. How is it you don't see this thing? It's so obvious to anyone. Just fucking look across the Middle East. Everywhere Islam has touched the people are fucking in shit. The countries have failed. They're killing each other. They're chopping off hands. They're hanging people. They're chopping off heads. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're a billionaire in Saudi Arabia or if you're a fucking penniless pauper in Bangladesh or Pakistan, or if you're middle class in Jordan, what's it called, Morocco or Algeria. They're still fucking chopping hands and feet off. They're still fucking hanging people. They're still putting women in cloth bags. It doesn't change. It's not some variety package meal. If you see it across the Muslim world, they're all in the shit. They're all in the deepest of fucking ignorance and darkness. This isn't it just happens over here or it just happens over there. Look across every Muslim country and you will see the same pattern. We have Mr. Welsh. Hello, big man. Sorry, mate. I just noticed you were back there.
So I met you venting. Fair comment.
Sorry, mate. Hold on. I think my headset's gone off. Hold on. Okay, say something.
Yeah, hello.
Hey, Welshy. How are you, my good sir?
That's fair enough, mate. You were ranting, which is fair enough,
I know,
considering.
I'm sorry. I was just off on one. But this is my therapy hour. This is how if I don't do this shit, I'll be running people down in the streets, okay? I'll be fucking running around like one of these fucking jihadi fucking maniacs. So I need to fucking vent this fucking shit.
Well, if the news is to be believed, they just said that he was since his release 1 week ago, he had been under constant surveillance.
Yeah, that's why they stopped him so quickly. They shot him so quickly.
I know. I mean, I had the impression that he on like Ralph was saying that they're like within the postcode, but no, they just had it confirmed I thought he was in constant surveillance because from the time he Moshe stabbed to the time he was shot, Moshe would have been like 20 seconds, 30 seconds. Can you imagine if there was no police on top of it? Can you imagine if there was no police on top of it?
He would have easily killed 5 or 6 people, probably more.
Wait. Probably more. It would have taken someone else to do some extreme action to stop him, you know?
Yeah. I mean, well, the thing is, the other cases where there weren't particularly police, watching these guys, like the ones in, not the London Bridge this year, but, I think it was in 2018, and the previous ones with the trucks, with the vans running people down in London, and Westminster Bridge. Well, they weren't watching those guys. They weren't, keeping tabs on those guys. So that's why they did what they did.
Well, like I said, he just picked a normal street in London. He didn't pick like a special postcode or anything. I mean, the reality is, if he was driving at that moment, he could have made a right mess.
Well, exactly. I don't know exactly.
Even if he was being followed, he could still make a right mess.
Oh yeah. I mean, the fact is, you let them out. We have civil liberties in this country. You let them out. Yeah, he's out. He's supposed to be running around. He can drive a car. He doesn't have to even hire a car. He could go up to a bus driver, put a knife to the guy's neck, throw him out, and take the bus and hijack the bus. Yeah. Basically, he could do that sort of thing. You know what I mean? He doesn't have to go and hire a car or a bike or a van or something. He could just walk up to a truck.
So the Conservatives are going to rush this bill through now, and this bill's going to say that they're going to now not automatically release terrorist suspects at half a sentence. It's going to be at least 2/3, and then they're going to be assessed with a parole board. I mean, fuck me. Talk about a fucking band-aid. What the fuck are they talking about? These cunts. Their job is to protect the public, the citizens.
Yes.
Right? I don't know what the fuck they're protecting, but it's not me and you.
Well, that's the thing. they don't want to be called racist. This is what it really comes down to. You boil all of this down and say, why is it that you're not taking harsher actions towards these known terrorists or terrorist sympathizers? Can't be called racist. We don't want a bunch of Muslims screaming at us Islamophobe. We'd rather let fucking maniacs out on the streets, knowing that at some point they're gonna kill or stab or maim someone, than for us to be called Islamophobe. I'm sorry. That's the price your brother, your sister, your daughter, your mother has to pay. Your father, whoever you know has to pay for us not to be called Islamophobes. Because being called as Islamophobe is worth more than your fucking family's life. That's what that is. That's what they're telling us. That your life is worth less than the Metropolitan Police being called an Islamophobe or racist. Thank you so much for my fucking tax money, Mr. fucking Johnson.
Well, the only thing that the police have succeeded in doing since obviously Stephen Lawrence is to be institutionalized racist against white girls by turning their backs to systematic abuse up and down, especially the north of the country. You know? Which is another example, isn't it? They don't want to be seen racist, but they just let the 12-year-old girls get fucking fucked in the ass. Great, let them fuck them. Don't worry about them. They've consented. That they've said they're up for it. I mean, it's absolute fucking horrendous. Fucking honestly.
It's a fucking nightmare, dude. I mean, at least you're still out in the wilderness, dude. They haven't touched that part of the world yet, but it's coming, dude. It's coming. You're not any safer than the rest of us.
No, mate. No. There's been a couple of cases.
There you go. It's gonna touch. I'm telling you, it will touch every person in this country, from all the way to the tip at Scotland, down to the south, down to the east and the west. Every person in this country at one point will be touched by one of these terrorist fucks, because they're not gonna fucking stop, and the British government is too piss weak to actually enact measures, because again, they would rather for your family to die than for them to be called fucking racist or Islamophobe or any of this bullshit. They have cowered them into this submission.
So I don't quite understand. See, when they're going to commit like terrorist acts, and your aim is obviously to kill or maim innocent people. I don't quite understand why you'd be given like Usman Khan a 16-year sentence that gets switched down to 8. I mean, I don't, me, I'll stick a 50-year sentence on it and make sure he serves 50. I don't quite understand it, honestly.
Well, the thing is, I mean, my next worry, you see, the thing is, okay, fine, you give this asshole a fucking 100-year sentence, throw him down a fucking hole and build the fucking prison on top of him. I don't give a shit. Well, all I'm saying is that he is not going to be the last. These Muslims are being churned out every fucking day. Every day there's some fucking hijabi with her legs wide open, either ready to pop a fucking jihadi out, or there's a guy who's inseminating her with the next fucking Salahuddin's army. That's what's happening.
And don't forget, just like this Mr. Ammon, whatever his name is, and the Osman Khan, the geezer, Osman Khan was a model prisoner.
Yeah.
He showed all the right signs, answered all the right questions, and what we're going to do, we're going to get this chap, Osman Khan, he's the boy he is, we're going to bring him to London, we're going to switch his hat, we're going to cancel his houseboat for the weekend, we're going to pay for his train, we're going to give him a chaperone, we're going to stick him in a hotel, and he can make a little speech. He can make a little speech. This is how fucking retarded these fucking authorities are. They've literally turned around, they've classed him as a model prisoner. He goes to London, he goes to the venue, he fucking straps 2 kitchen knives to his fucking hands, and then stabs the fuck that invited him. I just can't fucking believe it.
I mean, this is the other side of the fucking...
I don't even blame the jihadis. I'm not blaming the jihadis. I'm blaming the authorities.
Yeah. Of course, that's where I'm most.
I know what the jihadi's job is. I know what the jihadi's job is. I know what they want to do.
Exactly. I mean, at least the one thing you got to give these fucking maniac jihadis is they're honest. You know where you stand with
Yeah.
these cunts. It's the
Well, I mean,
police. It's those who we pay
a lot of people
taxes
are
to.
talking about. Yeah, a lot of people are talking about the actual perp. The terrorist. I've had enough of talking about the terrorists. I wanna talk about the fucking people that released them. I want to talk about the councillors that allowed this to go on. I
Yes.
want to talk about the chief and constables that allow our girls to be fucking used and abused. That's and I think we fail in that a lot of the time. You know what I mean?
I know, man. I know. This is what I mean. I mean, the fucked up thing is this is the fucked up
Someone had to try.
brainwashing
Someone had
of. Yeah, but the thing
to
is,
release this guy.
Welshie, the problem with the brainwashing of liberal ideology is that when this fucking cunt, not this guy, not the recent one, the one on London Bridge, killed the son of this liberal fucking father, the liberal
I
father
know.
came out in fucking support. To
I
say
know.
no, 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 no. Like, how fucking fucked up do you have to be? How brainwashed you have to be in
My
this liberal
my
ideology? How
Spencer's adult
cultish.
life. Son Spencer's adult life. Trying to make bridges
Yeah, but
and
the
do
thing
and do the
is,
right
this.
thing and believe in everyone is great and and then he got fucked up the ass and they killed him. I mean, it's
But
awful things happen. And
think
excuse my
about.
French, but that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, but think about this. Think about this. This is how I picture it, because my brother has a son. You have this son. You raise him. You spend your entire life
Back
working
chat, Banks.
yourself. Oh, okay. Working your entire life to your fucking bone, your fingers to the bone, to try to provide for this child, to try to educate this child. That boy went to Oxford. Was it Oxford or Cambridge? I think
Mm.
it was one of those.
Yeah, and look,
This,
he looked a really nice guy and he
yeah.
sounded a really nice guy. He's clearly
But
cut up terrible.
what I'm saying
But
is,
I mean, awful things happen.
this wasn't some ordinary little, some fucking loser. This wasn't some hoodie. This wasn't fucking someone
Mm.
from at Raspec's fucking ilk. This was a genuine, bright, pillar of our society. These are the people we want in our society to grow up to become our prime ministers and our leaders and our business leaders and so on and so forth. And yet, this boy was taken away from us. That young girl was taken away from us by some
Yeah.
fucking moron with an IQ of a fucking mashed potato, and yet the father of this fucking boy who has spent his entire life cultivating this mind, this human being, this person who would be an asset to us all, and yet his pathological liberalism doesn't even allow him to become angry. Doesn't even allow him to become fucking upset, to want to
Yeah.
fucking tear every jihadi limb from limb. I would be walking the street ready to fucking bite I would bite the fucking face of every jihadi Adnan Rashid type that I would fucking find. I would rip them limb from limb if they took my son away from me. He wasn't even
You
fucking
know what?
angry. That is unbelievable to me.
Yeah.
Hey, what's up, MC? How's it going, dude?
Hey Banksy, I can hear that you crave halal meat in this case.
Yes, yeah, I will rip his fucking throat out with my fucking bare teeth if he fucking took away my son. After I gave my entire life to raise a child, to make him the best that he can be, and some fucking moron with less than a fucking 10% IQ in his fucking head. This is unbelievable. This cunt gave nothing to the world, and yet he took away one of our best. How can this even be taught? This country should be up in arms. This should have pitchforks and fucking torches
Well,
at this point. You took away our best. You didn't take away some fucking. If you came down to Speaker's Corner and took half of them cunts out, I wouldn't even fucking be upset. I'll be honest. I think you did us a favor, this fucking jihadi. But you
Banksy,
took people away that went to Oxford.
Simon's backstage.
so Banksy, so you would encourage me to play Columbine with the cans on in the speaker's
No,
corner?
we can't. But I mean, you know what I'm saying. Just to at least be angry, at least be pissed at this. Sorry, let Simon on.
Well, I can say you have passion. You
I'm
have
just
lots of passion. I mean,
all I'm saying is, at least show some degree of heart. Where's your fucking heart at? Where's
Yeah.
your balls at? At least have a little bit of fucking passion about the fact that these cunts, these morons who would do nothing but to be a detriment to any society you find them in, have taken away people.
So what would have happened if his father was in the room while his son was being killed? His father just stood back.
I have no idea. But it's just unbelievable to me.
Oh no, that's
At the very most, I would say if the father actually like had that fire in him, he would make no comments. He's like, no, I'm too angry to make sensible comments, so I won't make any. No, the guy came out and he fucking cucked. He cucked for fucking Islam afterwards, which was unbelievable. I can't fathom that to me.
I ain't kept for liberalism.
Yeah. Hey Simon, how's it going, mate? I'm sorry, I'm a bit.
Yeah, you
my
having a rant,
therapy
I
hour.
know.
Welcome to my fucking therapy hour. This is
I've
to
got a
save
tweet
me
for
from
you.
pulling out the rest of my hair.
I've got a tweet for you. Speaker's Corner, and specifically Tan, was a target of the Streatham terrorist Abu Malik, subsequently identified in 2018 as Sudesh Amam. And here we have a picture of Sudesh's Telegram account.
Whereabouts? Are you putting it in a regular? Can you post it in
It's
the
in
regular
German.
chat?
I can't.
Can you
It's
post it in
it's
the
a
back
blog. I'll have to. I might disappear. Hold on. Let me go get it on the phone.
Come on, Simon. Come on.
It's all right,
Come on.
mate. It's all right. Others, well, you take your time. Don't jump off the panel. Just do your thing.
Get it.
But
Whoa.
fucking, I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm just so pissed. I'm just so utterly pissed off at.
well. What can I say? Brexit was just a win of one big battle, but you haven't won the war. To be honest, nobody
Exactly.
has won the war.
Exactly, mate. You're right. That's what it is.
What can I say? It will only hold people from Europe or Muslims from Europe to go that easy to Britain for now. But you have also the countries of the Commonwealth, not to mention the ones that live already here, and frankly, it will only slow down the process of Britain deciding in a civil war, because that's where it is going. We have to be honest about it.
I mean, it's just the way I see it is if people can't get upset about this, if they're not mad about it, if they're not dissatisfied with the country, with the way the country is, they will never change it. You have to. You can only. This is on a personal level. This is. I heard this shit from fucking, Tony Robbins. I don't know if you guys know who Anthony Robbins is. He's like a motivating coach. Like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, he had on one of his seminar things. He was saying the only time you make changes in your life is when you're dissatisfied, when you're deeply unhappy and dissatisfied with your life as it is. And that's when you will make dramatic changes. That's when you will actually, make something. You do something dramatic to change your life. And I think to myself, I look at this country and I think, I don't think the people of this country are mad. I don't think they're unhappy even with the situations, because if they were, they would then make some serious changes. It just seems to me that they're just carrying on as if nothing has happened, which is unbelievable to me. I can't fathom that aspect of it. Why are you still not even up? You should be fucking fuming. You should be fuming.
In the back chat.
Yeah, I saw the tweet. Speaker's Corner and specifically Tan was a target. Oh, hold on. Let me put this. Let me put this in the main thing for. Actually, let me see if I can share my. I'll share my screen. So that everyone can see it all simultaneously. Let me see if I can share my screen. Hold on, guys. Hold on. For fuck's sake, where is it? What the hell?
Banksy, by the way, I have a question for you. I don't want to be too cheeky, but have they already banned the usage of Norval tasks? I have to ask this question. I'm sorry.
That was good.
Have
That
they
was good.
banned Norval tasks?
From what I understand.
Well, can you imagine if the actual the lad that was attacking him with the noble tusk? Can you imagine if he killed him with it? Can you actually imagine if he actually stabbed him to
that
his
poor
belly
bastard
with
would
it?
have gone down for it. He would have gone down for fucking manslaughter or something.
Yeah.
Well, Thankfully, dislike of Islam is stronger than the fear of death.
Yeah, well, I mean, in a weird way, it was good that the police shot that fucker to death than that any of those guys who were trying to restrain him with like
Well,
the narwhal tusk and the extinguishers and all that jazz. Because if they had actually ended up killing that cunt, those poor bastards would have gone to jail themselves. Oh, sorry, Simon, you're in and out a lot, dude.
That's all right.
I'm
Yeah,
keep
that
missing
was,
you. Okay, let me
page
share
on
my
mobile.
screen.
I mean,
Yeah,
to be
very
honest with you, though, see,
yeah.
if this happened in Carlisle or Colchester or just a normal town up and down the country, they would have been wrestling that cunt for 10 minutes instead of fucking 90 seconds. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. But I don't know, man. I don't know. It's just fucking frustrating as hell. Okay, can you guys see this? This is I'm trying to zoom in on the whole thing. Speaker's Corner and specifically Tan was a target of the Streatham terrorists, Abu Malik. Also, this guy in Streatham wanted to kill Tan, subsequently identified in 2018 as Sudash Aman.
Yeah, so he's changed his name basically.
Okay.
So originally he was called that guy Malik, and it turns out I think that's what
Oh
it's
no,
saying.
well, was he using like a pseudonym or something? Sudash.
Yeah.
On that link. It's in German though. There's a few pictures.
Sorry,
In German? Why is it in German?
It says, "Guys in the UK, this should be your target."
what is this? I'm not also.
Click on it.
No, a lot of it has been redacted. I'm not sure what.
Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the other
This is
screen. It's a little
Breitbart.
bit
Is this
behind.
Breitbart?
It's someone's blog.
Oh, it's a blog. Azal anti-jihad blogger.
Azazel anti-jihad blogger.
Sorry. There you go.
But
Even
to
Azazel.
talk to us about it, break it down.
One of the
You
fallen
read
angels.
it. Tell us exactly who's this, Simon?
I haven't a clue. I do not have a clue.
All right.
Oh, I see. So
It popped up in the last 2 minutes before I jumped on. So
Azazel,
I've got
anti-jihadi
something to jump
blogger.
on with.
Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park, London. Light in what? Light in Het.
German.
This is German. I can't read German. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know.
My German is worse than my English.
But if you
Well, Banksy, you can give it to me. Maybe I'm going to do something about it.
Can you see it? It's on the side chat. It's in the
It's
side
in the
chat.
back chat.
The side chat. Oh shit! I cannot. I'm sorry. Make it bigger.
Oh, you're on.
I can't
Okay.
read it.
Let me make it bigger.
I can't read the commentary, but it's clear from the screenshot where there's a red circle. It says, "Guys in the UK, this should be your target." And a picture of Tan. He will be here this Sunday at Hyde Park.
Oh, this one here. You mean?
Wow.
He's fucking targeting fucking Tan. Yeah, but Tan hasn't been in England for fucking ages.
No, it must have been a while ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, MC, can you see some of this?
Unfortunately, probably there's something wrong with my internet for now.
Oh,
So
you can't see it. That's okay. I mean, this is a German thing, so I think we'll leave this one.
well, anyway, maybe in another stream I'm going to bring you a translated article from years behind, but it's too funny not to bring it here, to be honest. It's about a Muslim guy complaining that he gets less sex in Germany than in Lebanon. No shit.
He's complaining he's getting less sex
he
in
complained
Germany than
to
in
that
Lebanon.
newspaper. Yes, he complained to that newspaper in such a way, like the state and the newspaper would be his mommy, that his wife doesn't want to fuck her or the girl. I mean, really, we could sum it up in such a phrase and in such a way. Mommy, they don't want to fuck me. That's basically what you can understand that from him.
He's complaining.
I mean, I would put the entire text, but I have to translate it first from German to English.
Oh. Sorry, dude. Sorry. I mean, just as the whole gist of we got the gist of the.
but really, the guy is ending it like that. It cannot be. I have immigrated here for all that free sexual liberation. I'm getting it less in Lebanon. That was the end of it.
Well, guys,
Because
this is Welsh's. Everybody go to Base Welshman and subscribe. This is Welsh's video from the Brexit day, by the way.
Mate, it's crazy.
Excuse me, why are they a fascist?
Yeah, because you're a fascist.
Oh, right, okay. Why is that? Because they voted leave? Is that why they're fascist? Have you got nothing else? Is that it? So if I called you a pedo, that's okay, is it? You're a fucking pedo! You're a fucking pedo! You're a fucking pedo! Exactly.
good that you have actually. To be honest, I wanted to skip too much from the topics, Banksy, but I have to say something. YouTube is basically now protecting pedophiles in every way possible. My harsh anti-British police comments for the protecting and supporting the grooming gangs, because that's what they have basically done. Were almost immediately shut down or removed by YouTube, be it on under Sargon's videos or wherever else.
Bloody hell! What you mean? Any point? Like you mean if they talk about like these grooming gangs? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yes, I understand that I can be harsh and off the chain, but what's wrong with suggesting that all those policemen that have arrested the victims should be first fired, then tattooed on their foreheads with the sign "I support pedophilia," and threatened with heavy fines if they're going to remove it?
So it's a little bit extreme at the end, but
yeah,
there should be mainstream. And they've done things like professionally incorrect, especially when there's plenty of victims out there. Yeah, I mean, the tattooing bit, I think a bit, maybe the flogging and whatever you're suggesting.
And the flogging, maybe a bit much.
Right. Sorry, Mike, let me just play the end of that video. This is, I vent out like Banksy in a minute. I'll do a big venting.
Oh, okay. Let me share again. Let me just finish that video off.
Sorry,
Hold on.
because I do the pedo bit, but about a minute later, I just vent on them all, and they've got nothing to say.
Hold on.
Well, my internet's crap today. I see it's barely can play it.
Gareth, you've lost! You've lost! You've lost, mate! You've lost! It's 3.5 years! And you still don't get it! That's why Labour lost! That's why the working class left Labour! Because you still don't get it! No, you don't. Labour are a joke of an opposition, an absolute joke. And that's the reason why we're here today, and that's why we're getting Brexit, because our opposition party are a joke. That's why the Tories are jokes too, but Corbyn gave us this, and thank him, and thank all you cult victims as well. Thank you very much. Brexit! Hey, would you want a second vote, chaps? Do you want a second vote? Don't think so. In a leg. No second vote here.
Watch what I noticed now in a minute. Now,
wearing the blue.
so we look at the crowd; they're all old. And they call us all the old voters.
They're in the blue.
Turn their backs on us. The handlers are telling them to turn their backs on it. See the guy, the
France is leaving
handler?
next.
Turn
Don't
the
worry,
back on
France
it.
is leaving next. You got Frexit over there. You got boys protesting for Frexit over there. France is next. People are waking up.
This is why
All the
usually
best, then.
Did you get no one is on.
Yeah, and go for
More
it.
cult victims over here.
such a destruction.
So
Okay, we
here's
have
somebody,
Elendor or oh god,
Aaron Dorn, man.
Aaron Dorn.
Aaron Dorn. Hi, Aaron
How
Dorn.
you doing, dude? And
I
also,
don't give a fuck anymore, man.
I just want to say to Nadaverse, if you want to jump on, I'm only running for another 25 minutes because I got to get some sleep. I got to get up very early tomorrow. So that's why if anyone wants to come on, we have one more space. You got about 25 minutes, guys.
Okay.
Say what you want to say.
Sorry
so I
for
hear,
repeating myself, but I just want to ask it one more time. What's so extreme about suggesting to make a law that people, that those police officers should be punished like that? Fuck them.
Okay.
What's so extreme about it? They shouldn't be able to.
Who was that?
I don't know. I mean, hold on,
What's
guys.
that,
I've got
base-
two people, Spud and Roginator. Now I'm gonna let Rog on
Raj.
because I don't know if this is trolling or good. But just hold on, guys. We gotta
It'll be
gotta
Raj.
qualify these people. Okay,
Hiya,
Okay,
hiya, it's
that's
your
Raj.
favourite
That is Raj.
British
Raj.
Punjabi
Okay, guys, carry on.
I hear
Favourite-
that Bam Bam,
favourite
somebody Zeke Holden, I see there was a bit of an altercation.
Yeah. Can I just announce an
Yeah.
announcement?
I just
Thank
thought
you.
I'd get that in there because I thought
Can I,
it might be
can
an
I announce? Can I announce something?
Go for it. Announce.
The Lions Den is crushed. It's no longer here. Raspet
Oh.
Rebellion's gone. The
What
Lions
happened?
Den Reloaded's gone. The Lions Den is gone, and
What?
Raspet has no channels left on YouTube.
Damn.
So
Right.
hip hip hooray! Hip
What-
hip
what happened?
I'm sure
hooray!
he'll be back. I'm sure.
The wicked witch is dead.
Damn. What'd you do,
Not literally.
Raj? Was it? Were you?
I'm not going
two,
to say. I'm not going to take full responsibility. Let's just say, don't get the wrath of the Sikhs. Not just one. If you get the wrath of one Sikh, it's a little bit problematic. But if you get the wrath of two Sikhs, I won't say whoever the Sikh is.
I can imagine.
It's a bit peak for you. We're not about numbers. We're actually about quality over quantity.
Damn.
I will say I did report his channel though a couple of days ago. I don't know if it's to do with me. I think I know the real reason, but I did report it because he was stirring a lot of animosity towards James Speaker's Corner around the Quran and the stuff like that, and so I
couldn't
did
help but notice that when
big
Sid
up
kicked
Simon, big
off
up Simon.
and made his threats,
Thank Alpha then.
Raspex
Right.
encouraged it, and then when Sid said playing in the park is haram and you shouldn't do it, Raspex went, "Careful what you say." And it's like, hold on,
Yeah.
he just
What the thing is that if you sorry for derailing, but I've got to revel in this. The thing is that he's been attacking people for like a year and a half. I mean, I've been his most let's just say the victim that he's been going for the most. Yeah. Every other couple of months he'll go back to me once he's bored with other people, and some of the stuff he's accused me of, or he's accused Banksy of, or other people, is very, very dangerous for us. I mean, if you're accusing someone of being a paedophile apologist, you could get your head kicked, and it's not minor stuff.
Look, guys, sorry, I just want to say,
By the way, Raj, look out! YouTube is protecting pedophiles.
Yeah,
YouTube is protecting it.
Sorry, hold on. Can someone drop off because I want to get Nadaverse on for the last 20 minutes? I'm
gonna go.
No,
I'll go.
You stay.
No, I'll go.
Welshie has been on.
Okay, I will maybe go.
Thank you, Welshie. Thank you. We have Nadaverse. Hello, Nada.
Hey,
Hi,
Nada.
Nada.
Hey everybody! It looks like I scared everybody off. They're like, we're out of here. She's
No.
coming.
It's I can only get 6 people at a time, so I'm trying to rotate and get everyone on. But
No.
Raj, say your last statement because I want to then go to Nada.
I think what this is going to teach most people is that once everything comes out as to why Pakistani spectre has been shut down, the moral of the lesson is that don't piss off more than one Sikh. Otherwise, it's going to get peak.
I just want to make a short statement. I'm against censorship. We are we're getting heavily censored like no one else on the internet, so I'm against censorship. But I can understand if there's denouncement or defamation without any proof. Yeah, I hate that too. But it should be decided in the courts and not by deleting YouTube channels.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Well,
YouTube
say-
is I mean, YouTube, Facebook, all these places, they're fucking cucked as hell anyway. I mean,
Would you stand up and say that for a jihadi?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. It's good
Really?
that it is on the internet
I
to
don't-
make people aware of.
That's how
It's
people
much
network,
better
so-
to see what these guys have to say.
Well, yeah, I mean, look at
Yeah.
Jihadi Bob. If it wasn't for
but
his
then-
rantings on the internet, the FBI would have never intercepted him before he made it to Syria. So
Yeah.
know.
There is a fine line. Like it's difficult. I mean, I'm gonna kind of like I do like to hear some of the views, but there is a fine line between kind of like what Raspik was doing. I mean, Raspik wasn't just kind of like lying about people. He was doing full on character assassinations.
Oh
that could get people.
But the thing is, this is something actually Pavlov said in the park a long time ago, and I think I still hold to it. He says, "Free speech is the crown on the wise man's head and the bell above the fool. So when the fool talks, it rings loudly, and you can see the fool for what he is. And if a wise man talks, you can see his crown. And so for me, I always hold that if you're an idiot, you will be exposed by your own words, just like Jihadi Bob, and the FBI will be on your ass before you even make it to Turkey, let alone Syria, or if you have any intentions of doing anything crazy. And if you're a wise person, then you'll be elevated in society. And those can only happen if you actually have free speech. You can see the idiots for what they are, and you can see the wise people for what they are, and that's why you get people like Jordan Peterson and Sam Harris, and you get idiots like Raspik and Jihadi Bob, and I can clearly see them for what they are. I don't want any of these people to be silenced, because you see, the problem is, you silence someone Raspik, someone like Jihadi Bob, they don't disappear. These people don't go away. They just go and become even more enclosed into their own.
Well, the guy that done the Streatham attack, thankfully no one was killed. The individual was posting in Telegram and stuff, like I think it's encrypted.
There you
and
go.
he was posting videos of a speaker at Speaker's Corner who was a gay rights activist.
Yeah, but Raj,
And I need to find out who that was though, because I reckon that guy was a target for this guy.
You haven't seen the Tan stuff, have you?
No.
Oh, yeah.
He had his Tan there's a Telegram page from the guy, and there's a picture of Tan, and it says, "Guys in the UK, this should be your target. He'll be."
Oh, it must be Tan then. It must be Tan he's talking about.
Oh, okay, that's
it's got to be because
it
makes sense.
Gay, but he was just talking.
Yeah, no, he said pro-gay activist. Yeah, it's got to be Tan then.
It was Tan that he was talking about.
He
okay, so I did know.
Terrorist attack. Yeah, okay, that makes sense now.
If you want a translation of the text you were sharing before, I couldn't make that translation because it's Dutch. It's pretty similar to German.
Oh, where is it?
Yeah, if you see the side chat, the I Hate It Here has posted a tweet, and if you click on that tweet, you will then see the actual article, the blog post. So
yeah, because remember Tan was going to Speaker's Corner with Allah is gay. I mean, I don't really agree with that personally. No offense to anyone.
I do.
But I don't have. Let me say.
For the record.
One minute. Let me prep this. It didn't really offend me, and it didn't really. I can understand why others offended. It didn't offend me though, and I said this is right to do it. The thing is, because he was doing that, he would have looked as a pro-gay kind of activist, and he was there in 2018. So I was trying to rack my head. Who was it? Yeah, because there's only one gay in the village, and that's actually Simon at Speaker's Corner. So who else could it be?
There's a few other. There must be a lot of other gay people in.
Not openly. The only other one that I thought it might be would have been Steve, because I thought he was gay for the first 2 months.
Is the media talking about this specific aspect of the terrorist attack?
No, this
Gay-
was reported. This was reported 2 years ago because he was arrested 2 years ago and in prison for wanting to commit a terrorist attack. And one of the things was that related to Speaker's Corner. He's putting videos up of an individual who's a pro-gay activist.
It was fucking Tan.
And it's got to be Tan.
Yeah, I didn't know that when.
This is what especially the civic nationalists are always talking about, and they're right about this. All this LGBTQ and all this progressive will be the first that the Muslims attack.
Do you think we don't know this? Do you think
It's already happened.
God
It's already
tell
happened.
us?
Exactly. And this is
it's
why.
already-
This is why.
Do you
the
not think we've been
paradox-
fighting this battle longer than you have?
Yeah, but the thing is, this is why it's this insane paradox of gays for Islam. It's like nonsensical bullshit.
Yeah,
It's
I
like,
know.
how can you be a gay person and be for Islam?
Like sheep for
it's
wolves.
astonishing.
Yeah, it's like
astonishing.
chickens voting for marching for
However,
KFC.
No,
Hashtag
it's
out all gays.
I say like because people ask me, oh, why is like Sophia Lewis or Simon kind of like so against Islam? And I'm like, look, it's like a chicken liking KFC. You're not gonna you can't expect a chicken to like KFC.
Oh, but just remember, we've
Well,
been downgraded.
for McDonald's.
Yeah, it
Chickens
doesn't make
are
sense.
cannibalist, if you don't know that. Chickens are cannibals.
Yeah, that's true. They are cannibals. They
If
will
any,
eat
if
KFC.
anybody, if any group here, if any group that should be openly kind of like having a problem with Islam, it's got to be gay or transgender
Of
people
course, they
for
should
the
be at the forefront of
LGBTQ.
this.
But they can't because you have this tolerance paradox,
No, they
right?
fucking don't.
They don't get it.
Yeah. One thing I want to, guys, we have about 15 minutes. I mean, I'm not like
Yeah.
Respect. You can't PayPal me and keep me on. I want to go to sleep. But I want to give the last 5-10 minutes to Nada. Nada, do you want to make some statements?
Yeah,
Do you want to say something?
I just want to say something very good words of advice that I received years ago. Back here, I live in an area in a certain region of the U.S. and I've got some really great advice, and it's good. It's don't hate the player, hate the game. There you go, guys.
I think you should tell that to
that.
Ralph in his 3-hour streams about people's anuses.
No. But
And he's
basically,
defaming as people of hate, hope not hate. I think you really need to tell that to your friend Ralph, the Christian.
I'm just basically talking about in general. I just walked in on this. I really don't even know what you guys are talking about, but I just think that a lot of people need to remember a couple of things. Just basically, when we're having these discussions and these exchange of ideas, we can kind of get wrapped up on one topic, one rhetoric, and I noticed that a lot of people have sort of a they're not really good at like segueing from one idea to the next, or sort of like absorbing them, taking them. A lot of people think, okay, if you listen to an idea, if you can appreciate that exchange of knowledge, the idea exchange, as I said, that all of a sudden that's like the proverbial echo chamber. Like people want to stay in there. And I really don't understand why people can't listen to somebody else without losing they can't seem to control their emotions, and that's a little unnerving to me. So I just would like to see people kind of lighten up. Remember that there's other aspects of your life besides this particular conversation. Yes, it's important. There are very important parts of this conversation, I know, but you don't also have to step back. You got to laugh a little bit. You got to like look at the basically the divine comedy of it all. Basically, is all See, sometimes that's lost.
Take the clown pill.
I don't know what the clompa is. What is that? Sounds.
It's just Mr. Maticure, or no, was it Mr. Maticure? I think so. He described the coronavirus and the deep. He's very hard on the coronavirus and see the irony of it all, and doesn't give a shit, and all this. You are racist if you're not talking Chinese or something, right? You have to really understand how can you look at the world if you have the red pill and see all this stuff and not, first you have the black pill, which says everything is over, right? And then you have the clown pill, and you say just let the world burn, right? And most people are on this stage, and now people are transforming over. These would be the Mark Collett guy who take the clown pill for some time, right? And
Right.
now that they are fighting against it, they're fighting against letting the world burn.
Yeah, well,
But-
when you
yeah.
said clown pill, I thought it was some. I thought you were, with your German accent, I thought you said clown paw, and I'm like, what is that? Some German word
Clown-
I've never heard of?
clown,
But you said
yeah.
clown pill. Clown pill.
Clown
Okay,
pill,
I
yeah.
know what that is. And that's
Actually,
another thing.
Mark
Also,
Colette
I
have taken the anti-Semite pill.
yeah, and also for me, I basically I reject all of these pills. By the way, just wanted to go on the record of saying that I don't go around saying I'm red pilled, I'm white pilled, I'm blue pilled, I'm whatever. I'm not pilled.
Yeah, it's boring, isn't it? I'm sorry for the pill analogy. It fucking hurts.
I'm like, right there. As soon as somebody starts telling me about how pilled they are, whatever their pill is, that their
Whatever
their new
colour.
identity is their pill. I'm like, okay.
Banksy, have you played Simon's great kind of propaganda video against Valve?
Oh, they'll all hate it.
I haven't actually
I
played it.
loved
No,
it.
no, I liked it. I thought it
Valve.
was actually very good. I haven't. I've watched it. I haven't played it on this.
I think it's something I did want
Everybody,
to say.
everybody, subscribe to I Hate It Here. He makes excellent videos. Very funny.
If we've got a duty to watch out for extremists like fucking Suleiman and Usman and fucking whatever this one's name was, then young men, little hackers that pop up saying we need to militarize and import weapons from the USA like the IRA, then we kind of have a duty.
Yeah, they're doing that. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just want to tell you guys. I want to tell you what I review. The stuff I review. There's okay. You need to understand that like there's constantly like this jihadi, ISIS, these like new offshoot groups are constantly having propaganda video, and they're going high production value on some of them. I'm like, wow, I'm like impressed with some of them. But there's like it's to the point where like the things that you see that they do is like you have to really understand that these are people that have been put into an animal state. They're no longer thinking like human beings. They're thinking on a very like animal intellect. These are people that will decapitate with a dull knife a handicapped boy's head and hold it up, and they think nothing of it. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is what we're dealing with. And then also another thing to consider is that this is. But then there's a part where I'm like, this is insane. Like there's an entire drove of these jihadis. And they're basically like, I call them wheelchair jihadis. They're in wheelchairs, okay? These people are in wheelchairs, or they're like, they're paraplegics. They're missing a leg, or they're discussing. They're talking about this on their way to go and blow themselves up, saying goodbye to their kid, like, oh, don't worry, I'm gonna go. Like this is so wonderful. And then they hop in their truck, and then they go off and blow themselves up somewhere. And this is like to them. They're literally constantly calling on people, trying to take the disenfranchised, and that's real radicalization, what you see there. So when people, that's why it's so important to not go around labeling people, which has also lost its zeal. The whole you're Nazi, you're this, racist, Nazis, KKK, go away.
The thing is,
turned into a cheer, and it's silly and stupid because you don't know. There's people that want to hack your head off and eat
but
it.
then you have to stop zig-heiling like a dickhead, don't you?
Oh my God, get
and
over
you,
it.
and
you
you,
see he's trying to
and
get
you
a
have
rise
to
out of
stop
you.
saluting. No, I get it
No,
totally,
no,
but
not of it,
everybody does.
because
And I think what a more important point is that the elders, like Ralph, need to set an example so silly little shits don't get radicalized on the right as well as the left and Islamic.
Let me tell you something.
None of us. Sorry. Can I just say
That
something?
is
None of
far
us.
more important.
None of us. Look, I don't think you're a bad person, but I'm going to say this: that if you think Ralph is any different from any of these other radicals on the extremist Muslim side, then I think you're deluded. He's
I
just
think you're
as radical.
deluded. Apparently, you don't know, because I thought you were Zeke, and maybe your family needs to talk to you a little bit more about the history, and they didn't know what actually was going on.
Well, the thing is,
seeing these things, and maybe you think differently.
All right, so
you said that.
So for me, if anyone knows my history, I'm very outspoken about the Islamic conquest of India and how they raped and pillaged and killed 150 million people over 800 years. But it doesn't mean I'm going to condone people saying they're going to deport wholesale a group of people because they're Muslim. I can't condone that.
They don't even have.
That's actually.
They have only just started using the correct kind of language. They've only just started saying financially motivated, voluntary repatriation schemes. Up until that point, it's been camps, boats. They've only just realised what camps they look like.
To be honest with you, Raj, if I would be in charge, I would do everything to make the Muslims emigrate from Britain. From all my experiences with them, I'm sorry, but I would do everything to make their life so hard that they would like to immigrate from there. Really, I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, this is where it gets to the slippery road of like, are you going to become a savage in order to beat the savage?
Well, this is the thing.
To be honest,
where are you going to?
I mean, you can't tell me you don't have listened to Ralph and the proposals he makes to peacefully remigrate and set in measures so it can be very peaceful and very generous, I have to say, from us, because we really at this stage we would have the right to go on full arms, round them up and kick them out. We are more.
The point is, at the moment, that Ralph is kind of being a radical influence on people less intelligent than himself.
Well, these are the guys. The problem for me isn't Ralph's influence or not influence. My problem, the biggest problem I have, is that with the side that I consider myself on, with Raj and you, Simon, and Atheist Steve, is that we don't have a better alternative to offer these kids. You have to be able to offer them something better than what Ralph is offering them. And at the moment, what I will tell you, and this is what I said to Paul, the Muslim convert guy, you know what you don't like about Ralph, but you don't offer better than Ralph. You have to offer something to people. Right now, all I hear from Raj and from Steve and all these guys is how terrible Ralph is, but what are you giving? What are you offering in exchange? You have to say that I have this. My product is, because Ralph is clear. Ralph stands on something, and he says, "This is my product. I'm offering this product."
I stand on for Britain, and I'm quite open to helping integrity and anything that stands on the more reasonable right, and not a pale it's like a pale fucking impersonation of the American Groyper movement of Fuentes.
So
that's
you
exactly
can't,
what it is.
But you see that you can't actually define, you can't actually say anything without actually ad hominem or disparaging Ralph. You can't. It doesn't stand on your own. What you have no plan, like Banksy was saying. You're just like talking, but you're just saying, I would like it to be good. Okay.
Yeah, it's virtue signaling.
Yeah, but what I mean is this is it.
I think he's put himself up as Lord and Master, and he holds his little courts, and he needs to take him to task about it.
I agree. We push back. I don't mind. I say I'm trying to push back, but every time I want to push back, I have to. He turns around and goes, "Okay, what is your solution?" And then I'm sitting going, "Okay, yes, we got to get rid of some Muslims. We definitely have to stop any more coming in." But
let me make one point. Yeah. I read an article from a Pew Research study. Over 40% of the Muslims are for some kind of Sharia. So this is the scale you have to deal with. How can you then see the other 60%, right, of these Muslims who don't think that way? This would be like you are in a state of war against these 40% at least, right? So it's you have to throw out these 40%, but how can you make sure that you are able to identify these 40%? It's impossible, because they can straight up lie to your face about what they're really up about. So the other 60% can think they're 40%. This is the way it should go.
No, I think the numbers are way off, man. I think what the problem is, I feel like when I'm interacting with people, there's a small group of maybe 5%, maybe 10 max. But the problem I have with the Muslim community is the fact that they give them too much leeway. So they're doing what's called covering your brother's sins. And this concept has to stop in order to stop these guys committing terrorist attacks.
Sorry, Raj.
I'm not Raj.
Sorry. Other people were saying. It was just everybody was talking about Ralph. Okay, Raj. But the thing is, yes. You first of all, yes, they cover their brother's sin. So how many of them, in percentage-wise, even if they don't necessarily act upon what their brother does, even if they don't necessarily 100% agree upon what their brother does, will still cover their brother for their brother, and that brother will go on to do further
Yeah, I mean,
atrocities and
this
further
Most of them.
things.
Most
all
of
right.
them.
All right,
Most
so
of them.
Look, and I also make that
all
point.
right, so let me just answer it.
Yeah,
So I
okay.
agree. This is when I set my great 6-point plan to identify the extremists. This was like number one in terms of my problem, because I've seen even the most what you might consider to be moderate Muslim making excuses or trying to cover things that is clear cut extremists.
Yes.
Yeah, that you should be calling out, and this is my biggest problem. And I don't think that's something that can't be tackled, though. I think it's something that is a problem but can be tackled.
Raj, I stood in front of Adnan Rashid. That man looked me in the eye and he bold-faced lied to me. He lied to my face. It wasn't some video I watched, or it wasn't some I stood in front of that man and he lied to me. Now, I so regret two things. One is I forgot to ask him to say wallahi. And the other one is that I should have brought my Quran with me. I should have brought my Quran. I found my Quran actually. It's a tiny little one that my mom gave me years ago, and I wanted him to swear on the Quran that he did not. That was not him. I will. If I see him again, I will take that with me to the Speaker's Corner, and I want to see this man put his hand on the Quran and still lie. And this is the fact that after that moment, I looked around the Muslims at Speaker's Corner and I realized these people will look you in the eye and will lie to your face. They are fucking liars. I cannot trust these people anymore.
It's in a liberalist society, this is the perfect conquer strategy. You can't know what they really think. This is the problem, and they are talking about some high up Muslims talking about this exact strategy. Takia Watch has some great videos about that. So I have the extremists. Forget about the extremists. Yeah, these are the least people. It's a distraction from the real problem here. You have mass of Muslims who want to take over. They're not going out and doing terrorist attacks, right? They are using another strategy like birth jihad or something. And civic nationalists don't have an answer for that.
Okay,
and
let me ask everybody.
Yeah.
I just want to say, okay, here's the thing. Okay, so a lot of people don't understand. Sometimes they go like, okay, so when Ralph speaks about the Great Replacement, and people will be like, oh, they get all up in arms. But let me ask you something. So there's two different stories that are being spun to the public. So one is that so there's like the whole Great Replacement, that this is happening, or that this is definitely in happening right now. It's actually in effect, and that this is something that's imminent. Then the other side is you have people saying, then you have the outlets like the BBC saying things like, oh well, actually, we have this percentage of immigrants and this and that, and because the British public is on the decline, and what is it, over 1/3 of all babies born in the UK for I don't know how many years now are like immigrant children, and so that's a very high amount if you look at the percentages. But then they're being told, like, you've got to, like, you're not reproducing, and therefore you're not replacing yourselves, right? But then the other side, the West, are being told things like the planet, save the planet, don't have babies, don't reproduce, stop having children. So which is it? Do they need to, like, for the sake of the planet, do they need to stop having children or limit their amount of children they're having, or should they keep having children and start having more children?
And if anything,
people need to decide, what is it,
Well, and if anything, Chinese and the Indians should be at the forefront of that particular fucking movement. They're the ones with billion people population.
Exactly, yeah. So
yeah, but I know people are going to say I'm being lefty.
Convert China and India with condoms, that's for sure.
I know people are going to say, Raj, you're lefty, cut your virtue signaling, but I'm telling you straight now, I cannot condone people saying they're going to mass deport whole groups of people. I don't care what the reasoning is. I wouldn't accept it.
Okay, Raj, may I tell you something then?
I want to go on the record of saying that I personally do not condone just sitting there like ad hoc, just like grabbing a bunch of like people and just randomly saying you are not. Let me look at your lineage, therefore you're out. I don't agree on that. I believe that there's a merit base that needs to be in place. That there's also needs to be a certain criteria that needs to be in place. But I think there is a faction that does not need to be here and should be.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. Let me say something. When I say, like I've said before, yeah, if I ever went into power, there'll be a lot of deportations. Ralph would be one. Yeah, and a lot of other people would be also. It won't necessarily.
Yeah, but how does that make you any better then?
Well, no. But mine would. Like, when I spoke to them, we had a kind of like a. They gave me I gave them a hypothetical, and I just said, what if there was a family living next door to me, and they were just a hard-working Muslim family who weren't really any threat to the UK? Would you deport them? They said yes. Yeah, that's not the way I'm going to do it. Like if somebody is a Muslim, but they happen to be contributing to the UK, they believe in the UK, and they don't interfere with the state in terms of their religion, trying to stay it. They have every right to be.
You would be a more benevolent dictator than them.
Yeah. Like I said, so let me say something. I've said it from the beginning. Yeah, if I got into power, yeah, I'm telling you, I'll be dictator for a month. Give me a month, I'll clear the place out. Yeah, but it won't be based just on people being of a religion. How
about it won't be based on your emotions? Like, I like this family. They're staying. I don't like this family. They're out. How about a merit base?
You can't
Raj the Thanos of the UK.
No. All right. So let me just say something.
Extremists, not extremists.
Hold on.
The religion in itself is fundamentally extreme. So what if this Muslim family contributes or not? They are the part of the problem. They are the members of that totalitarian system. They are breeding and producing more Muslims that will not stand up to those extremists. And this we are going to go on and on and on. And finally, Britain will going to be 30%, 40%, 50%, 90% Muslim. And then what the hell are we going to do? Because your emotions said that to you. I'm sorry, you are not fit for a leader then, because the leader have to commit necessary evil.
Well,
yes.
Guys, hold on. I just need to ask one person to drop off. I want to finish the show, but Rob has been very patient. Rob has been very patient. I want to give him at least 20 minutes, so I've got to extend this.
I need to go. I will say that I was one of the few that actually supported Thanos. I think there needs to be
the Thanos solution.
Let me make one narrative.
But this family have to have a harder time to follow their religion. Yes, their religion is a totalitarian system, and it should be discouraged to follow it, to worship it, and anything.
It should be tolerated. It shouldn't be tolerated. It shouldn't be something that is protected. It shouldn't be protected. Oh, protect Islam. No. And you know what else? I want to tell you this. A lot of people don't understand the West. There are a good growing faction of the ones that have been silent throughout the Middle East and in different other Muslim majority countries. There are people there that there are a faction of them that are saying we don't want this to be ruling our lives. We don't want to live in this sort of style. But the problem is the West is supporting it. They keep protecting it, and they're in their country saying we don't want to live like this. If you go to like Iran, if you go to Iraq, there's people there in Syria that are like we don't want to live like this. We want to live free. We want to have people can have their faith or believe what they want to believe, but we don't want to live under this sort of like rhetoric, this sort of like ideology that's how our whole life is dictated by that. They don't want to live by that, but unfortunately, the West is tolerating that, and therefore, instead of by them tolerating it and protecting it in the West, that's actually reflecting negatively throughout Middle East and other Muslim countries. There's people there that don't want to live like this either, and they're Muslim or they come from a Muslim background. They don't want to live like this.
Yeah, but bring on Rob. Yeah, I'm off though. So bring on Rob.
Okay. Thank you, Raj. Thank you.
Even in China, under communist dictatorship, these communists weren't able to, get these Muslims de-radicalized or something. They are now putting them in concentration camps and re-educate them. Even under communists, they are no liberals. They have a clear picture in their head how a Chinese should be like. And they weren't even able to de-radicalize the Muslims. They have to now, they said, okay, we have to go full
re-education
camps. Yeah, right. So how would you explain that? You see that in China going on, and then you look at the West. I mean, it's impossible.
I know Banksy can probably confirm this for me, but I have friends throughout the Middle East and in other Muslim countries. Okay, and these people, they're growing in numbers, but they're being silenced because nobody's listening to them, and they're sitting by and going, why is the West protecting like the what we call the radical Islam? Why are they protecting this? Why is this like tolerated? Why are they doing this? They don't want that. They want to be free. They want to be able to walk around like free people, and they want to expand their minds. They want to stop having like their different industry and scientific advancement possibilities. They want to stop being stunted. They want to expand. They want to grow intellectually.
It's not even just that. We have in the Middle East, women are killing themselves, literally dying, trying to fight against having to wear the hijab by force.
Exactly.
And in the West, we have Wear a Hijab Day.
Yes, perfect. That's perfect. Exactly.
It's a spit in the face of every woman who's ever been beaten and raped in prisons of Tehran because they wanted to walk around without a fucking hijab on, because they didn't want to wear a cloth bag. And yet the women in the West, these overprivileged feminists, wear a hijab day. It's sickening. It's like a kick in my stomach when I see that sort of thing. I'm sorry. I want to let Rob in because I really want to. I have to go at 11:30, guys. I have to get up at 6 a.m. So can Rob please go ahead and have your say?
Hey, good evening, everybody, and good evening to the viewers. Thought I'd just pop in, buddy. Good to speak to you. A couple of things. As you know, I'm a extremely vocal critic of Islam, but I also separate Islam from Muslims. Before I speak about that, I have to say, if we're going to be consistent about, especially you and I, Banksy, with freedom of speech and so forth and expression, I have to speak out in one of the rarest times where I have to speak on behalf of Ruspec. If his channels were taken down because people did not like it, and it did not contravene any guidelines, which I think the guidelines are extremely poor anyway, they are there to restrict people, then I have to speak out on his behalf. I vehemently disagree with many of the things that Ruspec says. There's many other things I could say about him, but what I have to say, if I'm intellectually honest and consistent, is that his channel should not be shut down. He's accused me of being racist. I know he's gone after Raj, yourself, everybody else, but he's entitled to his say as long as it's not direct incitement to violence or it violates some other platform guidelines, which, as I say, are far too restrictive anyway. However, having said all of that as well, if he's for limited speech, now he has fallen victim to the same sort of limited speech slippery slope that he wants to impose. So at the same time as I would say he has the right to say violent, unpleasant things, whether they're true or untrue. So in that sense, his channel shouldn't be set down, but at the same time, in a sense, he can't complain because he is for limited speech, and here it's been used against him in some way, whether rightly or wrongly, and this is what people do.
Well,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, this is the thing. He would absolutely censor all of us if he got the chance, but nevertheless, I still want him to talk. I still want him to have that bell above his head, because I want to listen to the fool so I can at least know where the fool is.
Yeah, I agree. I'm definitely a big component of free speech. I think it's just ingrained in me as an American, and unfortunately, even here, we're fighting that because we have opposition, and they don't want to allow it. And it's what's called today the so-called leftists or whatever they are. They're this like Antifa thing. That this is like the whole like extension of that is becoming like a really big fascist movement, and people don't see this, but I tell you, you watch it. This is growing into its own level of fascism, where you can't say, you can't think, you can't do anything, or you'll be canceled, one way or the other, and it's horrible.
Yeah, I mean, it's social. I mean, the thing is, right now where we're sitting in this YouTube zone, we are sitting in a censored zone. There are many things that I have to tiptoe around. There are many things this is why people are now using code words more than ever. I don't know if you guys have noticed.
Yeah, I have.
The sort of language of YouTube now.
I have another name for the most peaceful religion, for example, the most goat-loving religion.
There you go. Truck of peace.
Religion.
The blues. The JQ and the
religion
14s and the 13s.
Explosive temperament.
Yeah, do you know the code 1350?
Yeah.
There you go. Aaron though knows the code 1350. 1350 is a particularly American code.
Don't ever look at black on white crime. That number will grow exponentially.
But yeah, I mean, this is what I mean. We're already using coded words. You're already using coded language just for the fact that we are on these YouTube and these sort of
Yes,
Silicon Valley
and I
platforms.
still support my idea of the law to tattoo the police officers and politicians that want to hide the child-loving gangs with a sign. I support extreme child love. You know what I'm talking about.
Poseidon does this best, this coded language. He won't even say Muslims or something. He says just doctors and astronauts and all this stuff. This is also very funny.
Yeah.
I would say goat
already,
lovers.
Yeah, but the thing
goat
is,
lovers, and I don't care.
The point is, we already are censoring ourselves. This whole thing was about, I mean, years ago when people started talking about the censorship of these platforms, was people are going to self-censor because they're going to push people to self-censor, and here we are.
We have no choice.
Coded language, because for me, ultimately, censoring speech is censoring your thoughts. Once you stop saying it, you stop thinking it. And that is mind control. That is thought policing. And that is why
Banksy,
nobody belongs in my fucking head but me. I don't give a shit who you are. You do not have permission to enter my brain. And that is the final
I see a
line that I
positive
draw in
of
the
that.
sand.
I see also a positive of that because in the past, the right were very, very harsh on things, and they were way over the top of the Overton window, so normal people can understand and what they really mean. So they won't project them as evil. So in a kind of way, it helps us to form more rhetoric that suits normal people more. So there's also a benefit of that, I believe.
I suppose, yeah. I mean, you have to, yeah.
Well, do you know, actually, interestingly enough, I was reading some documents over some statistics and everything. Do you know, like, simple things, like, for instance, like the left, the far left or whatever, or the alt left or whatever you want to say, whatever, the elite establishment, they have there's words that have been used methodically, but even the word this goes back to the late 1800s. You know, the advent of the socialist communism socialist sort of movement, and they and basically, like, if you see the left, like they say, like, there's kids that they, like, you say socialism, right? And kids think in their head, they think social. I want to be social. Being social is good. What's wrong with social? Social. And they have social in their head because social is a positive thing to be social. And who doesn't want to be social? And so socialism becomes a good thing. Communism, to come together. Who doesn't want to do that? That's nice too. These are all very nice, you know, that you can use, but ultimately we know what they lead to. So all that thing is very, very, it's all very strategically done.
Well,
you know?
today,
yeah, they're the masters of speech, definitely.
Yeah. Today, I was listening to the radio as I was driving back, and it was the guy on the radio was a Bernie supporter, and he was talking to an English disc jockey, and he said, you know, Bernie has managed to bring in, communism was all demonized and all that, but now he's not talking about communism. He's talking about socialism, like the NHS. You know, don't you guys like the NHS? The NHS is great.
Yeah.
Yes, NHS isn't socialism. NHS is a social service.
Yeah.
It is not
they don't get
socialism. You
right. They don't
fucking
understand
liar.
the difference. There's people there's kids in America, like late teens, early adulthood, that they honestly say, what about the UK? The UK is a socialist country. And I'm like, no, it's not. It has social welfare programs.
They kept saying the Scandinavian countries are socialist programs. They kept saying it for so long. The Scandinavian countries, the various leaders had to come out and say, no, we're not a socialist country. Quit calling us socialists. When we have social welfare, we have social programs.
You know,
they'll talk about about Sweden, and I'm like, you realize that Sweden is a monarchy with a parliament and a free market. It is not a socialist country.
Well,
You
And I'm
know
like,
who?
now, Banksy, I know one thing: why they have demonized us, people from the ex-Soviet bloc. To be honest, they knew that we were going to spit out truth left and right about their socialism and communism, how it really was.
Exactly. This is why they
So
fear.
they have to
fear
demonize
this.
us, and because let's face it, in Britain and in many places, people from the Eastern Bloc, the former Eastern Bloc, are a little bit, vilified in this leftist media, especially.
Yeah. But the thing is, MC, they fear the people from the social bloc, the communist bloc, talking from Eastern European nations, talking about socialism and communism, because they know you're going to throw a monkey wrench in all their rhetoric. Because you guys are the ones who lived it, and you guys are the ones who can still remember. It's still the wounds of communism and socialism are still raw in your nation.
Of course they are. 30 years after, and I can still feel it
Exactly.
in my own country.
That's why they're scared to death of when a Hungarian or when a Polish person stands up and goes, "Yeah, you know this social communist shit you're talking about? It's fucking awful, you idiots. You have no idea what you're talking about."
And I would like to say, and frankly, they have the right to fear, because that's what I want to do to them, to every single one of them.
What I tell to every European, and I think the one who talks about this problem we have with the language, narratives, framing, and all this stuff, who the left, they done it for decades, right? And perfectly, it was a master plan and all of that. And to deconstruct this whole thing we are facing, the best guy to go to understand how to counter these things is No White Guilt. He has this concept of going free and how to address communism and all this stuff, because it's too abstract. He would just frame it as anti-white. What Netta has mentioned before. So you have these Fridays for Future kids who are for saving the planet because of CO2. At the same time, they are also pro-migration. And if you look at the numbers, you look at the data, a Somali guy that moves over to the UK has 80 times more CO2 production in general, right? When he moves from there to here. How can you understand these flaws in their minds? You can only understand this illogical things if you think of all of this as an anti-white policy, as an anti-white agenda. Then all makes sense. Why are they saying that?
Yeah, it's like don't have babies. The world is overpopulated, but we need more workers. We need more bodies to support our means of production.
It's
so
different excuses for an anti-white agenda. Yes,
we need people, but then you guys stop populating the world over here in the West. You guys stop, okay? Be woke. And I'm like, ugh, when I want to vomit when I even say that word. The fact that it even came into anybody's vernacular. But like you need to be so-called woke, you know, and like the save the planet. Stop having children. Stop the overpopulation. Love the animals more than you do babies. Like, who cares about them? You know, they're just babies. Let's focus on the animals. Don't be cruel to animals, but like, you know, go ahead and slaughter your babies on the altar of Malik. No problem. You know, it's all very distorted. It's very distorted, and I hate the fact that I see increasingly less and less people with their eyes open, and people don't understand simple things. They're trying to equate. Now, every country, every model, every single system of government does not work for every country. And I'm sick and tired of people, for instance, trying to take the U.S. as some model for Europe and everything else, because the U.S. is unique. The U.S. has a certain system that works for it, and what works in the U.S. doesn't necessarily apply to other countries. And you know, and people need to open their eyes and realize this, and stop trying to turn everything.
Thank you, Nada. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, it just doesn't.
Thank you for saying that, but I just want to say one thing. Do those idiots understand how many methane cows produce, by the way?
Yeah.
Well, the funny thing is, we tried to try to say something about the cows and everything like that, and I'm thinking like, girl, are you crazy? Like are you try to take a steak or a cheeseburger away from an American is like like that's sacrilege. Don't even try that. Like she lost right with that. She shouldn't have even
Messing with
mentioned
your
the cow.
life right there.
Oh, yeah.
Racing with death.
Yep.
Well, I don't believe in God, but God bless America for that.
I'll tell you what, in the U.S., that's what I'm saying. Like in the U.S., it works here. Like in the U.S. here, this is this is like the way it is in the U.S. is like like I might disagree and I might completely disagree with what you're saying, but I'll die for your right to say something so stupid because I want to be able to say something just as stupid, maybe, so like people do that. So that's where you have the whole don't tread on me, like, like stay off my lawn, I'll stay off of yours. And let's like, whatever. But that also comes at a place where you maintain the status quo, you maintain the certain sort of like where there's an agreement where this is the way we do things here. Once you start allowing people that are coming in that don't do it that way, they don't do it that way, and you start to actually placate to their completely foreign systems and their completely foreign ideologies, and you start to cater to those. Now you've already negated. Now you've already taken all of the validity of that collective understanding, that collective wisdom that like this is how we do it here. And that's the unfortunate thing, and that's what now is being combated and saying like, no, whoa, you can't go that far. Like we're sitting here, there's things that are just so insane, and I'm like thinking, are people actually watching this? Are they actually absorbing this? And I'm thinking, God, I hope that they actually are like sort of like LARPing and just like really sitting behind their avatar and saying these things or whatever, filter, like throwing this rhetoric out there that they don't actually think this way. And I think that's true for some people, but unfortunately it's not for others. And they're the hypocrite. Listen, we're all hypocrites in some ways. Okay. All of us, whether we realize it or not. There's things I try not to be. I try to really keep that to a minimum, but I'm sure there's times where maybe I am hypocritical in some ways. We all fall to that. But the bottom line is that how are we really going to let the hypocrites rule? Are we going to let them just sit around talking one thing and doing a completely other thing? Are we going to really, like you have in the U.S., for instance, you have like the whole Democrat, socialist Democrat, left, and then like whatever with Hillary Clinton, who's going to run again. I knew this a long time ago, and so you have her. So now she's all pushing some sort of like free agenda and some sort of whatever inclusivity and all that and everything else. And then at the same time, this is the same woman that was with like was with Robert Byrd, who was a senator in the U.S., died in the 2018, and he was a KKK dragon master, whatever the heck they call themselves. He was like a totally KKK guy, and they had like pictures of him. And she at his service, she referred to him as her mentor. And that's a KKK. Then you have Margaret Sanger, who's like the Mrs. Abortion chick, pushing it on everybody. Meanwhile, like, oh yeah, we love Margaret Sanger. She's so great. The feminazis love her. But then at the same time, she was a total eugenicist who was looking for the extermination of Black Americans, who refer to them as weeds and undesirables. I mean, this is just insanity. That's what they're supporting. It really is.
I know. Guys, I've got, I would have had 5 minutes, but I'm going to extend it. I've got, no, wait. I want to give everyone on the panel, there's 5 of us, I want to give everyone 1 minute to say something on whatever they want to say. It doesn't have to be on topic. And you'll have a whole minute to say what you want. Rob, are you here with us?
Yeah, I'm listening in, my friend.
Rob, do you want to go first? Since you've said
the
sure.
least.
1 minute. Go, my friend,
no
on
worries.
anything you want, on any topic.
Yeah, so just because I heard a few comments on Muslims and deporting all of them or something along those lines. And I think, certainly for me, I differentiate between an ideology and the people. I've met many, many Muslims, and I've spoken to at least 500, I would imagine, over the last 3 years, both online and when I used to go to Speaker's Corner. And I've stayed with some Muslims, and they're not all the same. And I think many of them are better than their book. And I think atheism is on the rise, and ex-Muslims are on the rise, at least according to the Pew stats and some of my ex-Muslim colleagues around the world, people like Harris Sultan, the guys in the US, Abdullah Samir and others, and they regularly post people deconverting. So for me, I think education is one of the key things for this sort of thing, teaching people critical thinking, the ability to use science, reason, and empathy, and to show people that you don't need to believe in mythical books. And when it's shown that there are, mistakes and errors in your book, and if you're intellectually honest, you should give up these beliefs. So I'm hopeful that there's more of that, and then the stats and the polls and everything else seem to suggest that. So I'm not in favor of deporting all Muslims, because not all Muslims are the same. I'm not in favor of deporting most of them even, but I am in favor of critiquing Islam and getting people to think critically. And I think education, both in schools and for adults, is a key tool in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rob. Thank you. Let's go to. Okay, I'm gonna pick randomly. MC, 1 minute, my friend. Whatever you want, whatever topic. If you
Okay,
want to
I
plug
would
something.
try to shorten it up. First and foremost, I am also not in favor of deporting anybody, but yes, certain ideologies should be curbed, and it should be harder for the followers of those ideologies to follow them. And unfortunately, we as a civilization have to survive. The most awesome civilization ever created will go down if we're going to allow this. And yes, Raj have no solution. I want to talk behind his back, but he doesn't qualify as a leader, because a leader must do the necessary evil at times. That's the truth. And when we talk about the traitors and the Westerners that are supporting Islam or something, those are mostly leftists, as we all know it, from California, California to even my own country. We have also such leftists. They want to have an election block. Let's be honest. They want to have somebody that will always vote for them, like the Labour have imported many members of the minorities, but the Muslims are perfect for them.
Okay, thank you. Arundel, are you there? Would you like any subject, any topic? Go for it. 1 minute.
Yeah, I want to sum it up because I see the problem here really is look, I am only thinking in the categories of pro-white or anti-white, or deeper pro-German, anti-German if you go to ethnicity. And this is why where shit hit the fans, because where Raj was on here before, he said he tolerates he's not tolerating, for example, extremists, right? But I go much farther. I'm saying, it's not only the Muslims, I say, it's other groups too. They want to have more power in our country. Is that good for white people or bad for white people? And then you come to the conclusion, and I would also say to Speaker's Corner, UK, if you think that logic and facts will eventually prevail and be superior, and everyone thinking the same and all this shit, you don't understand human nature. I think only someone who don't look up race and IQ and all this stuff and biospirits can make that point. It's an individualist point, and individualism won't beat group identity. And this is where I think much of this individualist, atheist, and all these others don't get. So just think about anti-white, pro-white, and then you will come to the right conclusion, the right solutions, and all of that. And to Raj, one last statement to Raj. He put out that narrative that it would be immoral to remigrate Muslims. I say the exact opposite. It's I'm on the moral high ground here, because with his logic, there will be a completely genocide on white people if we don't act the way we do. And what can be more moral than protecting your own group from dying out? Yeah, this was would be the
Thank
point.
you. Nada, 1 minute. Although other people took a little bit, so I'm going to give you a little bit more leeway at the end there. Others went on a little bit over, but any topic, any subject, go for it.
I just want to say that I just want to say to men, I want to say to men like noble-minded men, like just don't put your hands back on the wheel, because it's going to get out of hand. It's only going to get worse if you don't have your hands back on the wheel. If you don't take the lead, then the nefarious-minded men will, and they have, and they are, just like the ones that have created the feminazi movements, the ones that have done that, the ones that have done other things. They are the ones, ironically, that actually started the whole feminist movement to begin with. So if the noble-minded men like step back and they don't speak up and say what's right or wrong because they're going to be afraid of the backlash, then we're all going to be in a lot of trouble. So I really hope that that you guys will do that. That we could do that. That we can get back to a place where we can be sensible, where we can have comedy, we can laugh again, and which we are. But I mean, laugh more again. Focus on things where it's time to work, it's time to play. There's all sorts of time for everything. But yeah, if the men, the good men, if you will, take a step back, the ones that are sensible, then man, we're in a lot of trouble then, because you know the histrionics are going to come from women. That's going to happen. Women are histrionic. They're going to be like that. But you know, eventually, not all, but that's their propensity towards that. So like you just sometimes have to speak up and be like, no, it's not all right. No, I'm not going to call this this dude in a dress, or this other dude. No, I'm not going to agree that that's a woman. You know what I mean? Look, I understand it might be a little bit fun to step back and be like, that's what you wanted. You know, when there's some like dude like beating the living daylights out of some like woman in an MMA fight, or taking over their sports, you know, and turning their sports into co-ed, because there won't be any women's sports anymore. I know sometimes it's like a little bit like that's what you wanted, that's what you get. But man, you guys got to step back up. That's all I got to say. Please step up.
Thank you.
Nata, can we go to a compromise? I would say to this dude in a dress, you are the most ugliest woman I have ever seen. Can I go with that? Please?
Yeah, that'd be fine. Yeah, Banksy. And Banksy, thanks for hosting this, and thanks for keeping the conversations flowing. Thank you.
I'm sorry I couldn't keep
it
any
longer.
I couldn't do it any longer because I have to sleep. I need some sleep. I'm usually shattered in the mornings if I don't get a few hours in. But thank you everyone for coming. I mean, I'm gonna wrap up the show off, you know, on my off this panel later on. But I just want to say for the panel, there was a quote that I've been seeing for a long time, and I posted it actually on my last stream. Hard times make strong men. Strong men make good times. Good times make weak men. Weak men make hard times. Thank you guys.
Very good. One of Simon.
Circle of life.
One of Simon's. My brother Simon, like from Tequila Watch TV. That's one of his favorite quotes. Yeah.
I know. I think it was him that I saw it from, or it was some. It must have been him, because he's been unusually a big influence in me recently. Don't tell him that; he'll get a big head.
Yeah. Yeah.
I say to Nada as well. One last point. The beta men are waiting for a woman to call their men for action. Alpha men do it anyway, but we need women that speaks out, wanting their men to fight for what's right, and we need women to say, now enough is enough, fight for us, or you won't get sex. Okay?
That's it.
Well, yeah, I don't know about all that, but I mean, I'm just like, yeah, they've got to be told that.
The thing is, it's been shown over and over. Even feminists prefer alpha males and strong men.
Of course,
than they do weak men. Even the feminists don't like
alpha males
hipsters.
and strong men.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. The feminists marry they marry a hipster, and then they cheat on him with like the rugged dude who's like, I don't care. Like, what do you look at, lady?
with the misogynist.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you guys. I'm out of here. You guys can stay here and carry on talking if you want, but I'm gonna knock off, and I'll see you guys later. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye. Okay, boys and girls, here we go. That's the final countdown. I gotta get some sleep. I'm falling apart. Thank you everyone for coming. I don't know, my final thoughts when it comes to this craziness of the left and the right, the extreme left, the extreme right. I don't know. I find myself in strange times when where I would naturally find myself, or where I thought I was naturally suited, which was libertarian waters, are no longer tenable. They're no longer. They don't seem to be an area in which I can, it doesn't seem to provide solutions. This is this is really the final thought, is for those of you who scoff at Ralph and who call him Nazis and they're the Nazi party and whatever. If you don't offer solutions, Ralph will win. Ralph and his ilk are standing on with their feet firmly planted, saying, "This is what we offer. This is their product, and if you don't have a better product to offer, and you only offer your only counter is they are terrible. That is they are Menazi. That is not gonna win. That is not a winning strategy. You have to offer solutions. I don't have I every time Ralph says, okay, so what is your solution? I'm silent. I don't have a solution. I don't have a better solution than his. His solution crisscrosses with some of my ideas to begin with, and then, but what I fear about what he's advocating is these guys think they are the ones who are going to carry the revolution to the end. I say they are the pawns, and someone else will step up and steal their revolution, and then he will bring in the Auschwitz camps and the ovens and all the rest. So that's the thing. They think they're the ones who are going to carry this to the end. They're usually the ones who get lined up and shot on the first day after the revolution. So unfortunately, I can't. Those who start revolutions don't always end them. The ones who take over after revolutions are not necessarily the ones who start them. So that's my fear, and I think Ralph knows it. History is attested to that. So I don't know. But the left is insane. The left is a joke. No one takes the left seriously, and the right has at least something that they're offering these kids. These kids, they don't want unsure adults telling them the other guy is bad, but that's it. He's just bad. They want something from you. So Raj, Steve, better start offering things to people. Better start offering solutions. Better start offering a product that is better than Ralph's. Otherwise, you'll just be ignored. Menazi doesn't work anymore. I promise you that. Menazi is not a solution. Menazi is not a better product. You are just pointing out the negative. You are not offering a solution. And I don't have a solution for you. I'm sorry. I've been thinking about this crap, and the solutions are actually a little bit of Ralph, but not too much of Ralph. Just like Nigel Farage says, a little bit of socialism is like a couple of pints. It can get the juices flowing. It can have a little bit of party. But if you're at the 10th pint, you're usually throwing up in the taxi. So Ralph is a 10th pint. I'm not joking. I think he is giving you 10 pints, whilst what we really want is 2 or 3. So anyway, come up with solutions. Menazi isn't one of them. If your best solution, if your best argument against Ralph is Menazi, you're on a losing foot. You're not winning. You got issues. You got to do better. That's it. That's really it. So if that's the best argument you've ever come up with against Ralph's lot, then we have to do better. We have to do better. You can't have Ralph to have the better solution in this situation, because I'm telling you, things always go shit when those sort of things are if by repatriation is your only solution. It's fucking. I'm not even talking about Hitler. Idi Amin's solution was that. Idi Amin came up with repatriation too. So it's not a white thing. Black people can deport people too. Oh, I don't know, man. I don't know. Have yourselves a good night. Keep your family safe. Keep your friends close. Keep your enemies closer. I don't agree that Raspek's channel should have been shut down. Don't shut these people up. They don't go away. They just hide better. That's this. Put the bell above the fool's head and let it ring. Have yourself a good night, guys. Love each other, and tickle your asses with a feather. Ciao.
I got a feeling that something ain't right. self-made man. And your friends, they all come crawling, slap you on the back and say, well, I'm trying to make some sense of it all, but I can see that it makes no sense at all. Is it cool if I go to sleep on the floor? 'Cause I don't think I can take anymore. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you. Self-made man. And your friends, they all come crawling, slap you on the back and say, well, I don't know why I came here tonight. Got the feeling that something ain't right. I'm so scared in case I fall off my chair, and I'm wondering how I get down the stairs. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you. Stuck in the middle with you. Yes, I'm stuck in